this quiet place where you don't have to explain yourself. You move slowly through the room, more of a careful noticing than any task. And the stillness that rests here feels recent, like the pause that follows a long conversation. The lamp on the side table throws a small oval of light across the wood, warm and private. It picks out the grain and the faint circle left by a glass, a pale ring that says, "Someone else warmed this surface tonight." The ring is nothing urgent. It is simply a trace, a gentle punctuation that the evening was shared, that the space carries company even now when it's quiet. There is an extra chair set a little off to the side, one leg a whisper from where it belongs. The cushion on it bears the faint imprint of a body, the fabric softened where someone rested for a while. A folded jacket rests over the back, the sleeve hanging like a pause sleeve of conversation. You do not need to make anything of these things. They are ordinary domestic marks, the comfortable disorder of people who spend time here and leave their shapes behind. They feel like proof that other people have fit into the room and left it hospitable, not hollow. The kitchen light has been dimmed in that practiced way that keeps the sink and counters visible without burning the rest of the apartment. A few plates are stacked on the drying rack, steam already long dissolved, but the air still holds the soft scent of what was eaten. Herbs, a touch of citrus, something roasted and honest. There is a dish towel folded in a careful, habitual manner, slightly damp where hands wiped at their edges. You run a finger along the towel and notice the texture of the cloth, its small loops, and the way it cools to your touch. These tactile things feel particular and private. Cotton that knows how it has been used, a surface that has accepted hands and dishes, and the habitual clink of forks. Outside, night presses gently against the glass. The city breathes at a distance, a low swell of sound that keeps the apartment in the world without invading it. Occasionally, a car passes and the light from its headlights blooms across the curtains. A slow, soft pulse. The hum of the refrigerator is steady and reassuring, the kind of background noise that reads as domestic safety more than anything else. Pipes settle somewhere in the building with a tiny polite creak, like a house taking the smallest of breaths. Even these small mechanical sounds feel companionable, reminders that the world is quiet but not vacant. On the coffee table, two glasses sit within easy reach of one another, one with a faint crescent of liquid, the other empty. A small stack of magazines with edges softened by handling leans against a ceramic coaster that has a tiny chip on the rim. The chip seems to carry a story that is not urgent to untangle. Nearby, a postcard leans against a jar of matches, its colors faded at the corner, the image of a familiar place where people gather on late nights. It is the sort of thing that suggests belonging without announcing it, a small artifact from chosen evenings. You recognize its angle. It fits the apartment the way an old photograph fits a mantle. The couch cushions are slightly rearranged, one indented into a comfortable loaf that invites sinking in. A blanket is draped over the arm, its texture soft and woolen, the sort that collects the scent of the room and the faint perfume of the people who have used it. When you pull it over your knees, it settles around you with an ease that is familiar. The fabric is neither pristine nor frayed, it is simply known. Your hands notice the weave, how the threads give just enough and then hold, like a quiet agreement between you and the object. Light from the lamp warms your skin in a way that makes the rest of the room recede into deeper shades. Shadows gather in the corners with no menace, only the comfort of softened outlines. The clock on the wall ticks in a measured, unobtrusive rhythm. You do not time yourself by it, only let its gentle cadence become part of the atmosphere, a small companionship that arrives in the little beats between breaths. The cadence is unhurried, like someone humming just beyond the door. There is a faint echo of voices from earlier, not words you could replay, only the memory of tone and cadence. That memory is not sharp. It feels more like the sense of warmth you get when you step into a room where laughter recently passed through, the air still holding the pattern of sound. You can imagine the way coats were shrugged off at the door, the soft scrape of chairs, the easy clatter of plates. These moments are not rehearsed for you now. They are simply present as a kind of domestic residue that tells you this space has hosted and been hospitable. A small lamp on the bookshelf glows with a softer, lower light, the kind that invites reading but not attention. Its shade is the color of warm tea, and the bulb within gives off a gentle, wine-like hush. Nearby, your favorite book rests open at a page you know by heart, the crease of the spine familiar like a well-worn path. You do not feel the need to read it tonight. Its presence is companionable in itself, the knowledge that stories are nearby if you want them, that language and lines live within arm's reach. You pad to the window and press your palm to the cool glass. The coolness feels bright against the lamp-warm skin of your wrist. Outside, a faint mist clings to the nearest trees, lifting any sharpness from the night air. The windows reflect the room back to itself, showing the lamp's oval light and the silhouette of the chair. In that reflection, the apartment looks twice as inhabited, layered with both the actual and the remembered. It is quiet in a way that feels owned, not empty. There is a small, familiar scent that lingers, soap, a citrus note, the clean smell of linen that has been left to dry in a warm breeze. Mixed within it is the trace of something more textured, like wood smoke from a neighbor's fireplace or the faint musk of a woolen coat. These scents overlap and settle against your skin, each soft and particular, each telling a minor story about this place and the people who move through it. They are not assertions of identity, only a domestic language you understand. You move back to the couch and let yourself settle into the indentation that seems to remember you. The blanket unfolds around your legs like an old habit. The warmth that remains on the table, the subtle tilt of a chair, the gentle smudge where a hand rested. These small things make the apartment feel like a room that has been shared. It is a quiet, hospitable presence that does not demand anything from you and does not ask you to explain how you came to be here. You breathe and notice how slow each inhalation becomes when you pay it no mind. The room holds you with the same unremarkable ease with which it held the evening. There is comfort in the notion that someone else was here earlier and left the place softer for it. You do not reach for meaning or explanation. You simply let the details sit around you, familiar and unforced, as if you and the room have agreed to keep the evening gentle and its memory safe. You move through the room with a slow, unhurried ease, noticing how the smallest things are tilted just a little as if they remembered the recent company and did not want to pretend otherwise. A chair sits half-turned from the table, one foot nudging the rug. A jacket is folded over the back of another chair, not carefully but with a comfortable disregard of someone who planned to return. These little misalignments hold a warmth that feels like a quiet agreement between objects and people. They say it is fine to settle at your own pace. Lamplight pools across the table, soft and mellow, casting familiar shadows that lengthen and soften the edges of objects. The lamp is the same one you always leave on during late nights, its glow just enough to read by, to sort thoughts into quiet piles, to keep corners tender and visible. The light touches a mug with a faint ring on the wood beside it, a shallow memory of heat. The mug has fingerprints that are not yours, a thumb smudge near the rim, like an echo of conversation. It is evidence of presence without insisting on stories. There is a low, constant hum from the kitchen that steadies the room, the refrigerator taking its slow breaths, the boiler settling in the building, as it does every night. These small mechanical sounds are like soft punctuation between moments. When the air is still enough, you can hear a distant car glide past, tires faint on wet pavement, a reminder that the city keeps its own quiet rhythms while you sit inside this warmth. Outside the window, Streetlights blur into long beads of gold along the glass, pressed against night in a way that makes the room feel like a safe vessel. You touch the arm of the sofa and feel a fabric that remembers weight. The cushion has not fully bounced back to its original shape. The indentation is a trace, a map of where someone rested earlier. That impression is a gentle companion now, not a vacancy. It suggests the room was used and appreciated, that bodies were present and then left, leaving behind soft evidence of each other. You are allowed to notice this, to let it soften your breathing without needing to turn it into anything else. There is a stack of dishes by the sink, rinsed and left to drip dry in a practical, unhurried way. A tea towel drapes over the faucet with the casualness of someone who washed up after a shared meal. The scent of citrus and warm sugar lingers, mingling with the clean linen smell of soap. Each scent is layered, not demanding to be named, just present in the same way that a hand on your shoulder might be, steady and unobtrusive. You can take another breath and let the room's small smells fold around you like a well-worn sweater. An extra napkin sits on the table, creased in a way only someone who stayed past the late hour would crease it. You picture the slow motions that made it. Fork set down, a hand returning for a cup. Laughter that softened into conversation about small, familiar things. The memory is soft-edged, like looking through a misted window. It feels safe to trace that outline without needing to fill in details. The traces here are comfortable because they do not require explanation. They belong to the kind of evenings you know well, the kind where words were small and the company was steady. On the shelf, a small photograph leans against the books. It is a snapshot that captures an ordinary chosen moment. Arms loose around shoulders, a table crowded with dishes, a city corner in the background. There is no grand gesture in the image, only the plain intimacy of people who know each other and have made this place part of their language. The photograph does not demand to be interpreted. It simply rests there, quiet and true. A tiny affirmation that life includes mornings like these, and evenings like these, and the soft middle of night. You notice the playlist that still floats softly from the speaker, the kind of music you both pick when company is familiar. Warm tones, voices that fold into the room rather than rise above it. The songs cycle in a gentle rhythm, each one a familiar hand on the shoulder. Each chord a comfortable pause. You do not need to search for meaning in the lyrics. The presence of those songs is enough. The way a familiar voice can make a room feel private, though the world beyond the glass is wide awake. The air carries a trace of rain from earlier, damp on the pavement, cool along the windows. Evening humidity clings faintly to the sill, bringing with it the clean, soft scent of wet stone and leaves. The dampness makes the wood smell a little sweeter, like a breath held, close to a summer memory. Your fingers trail along the armrest and find the faint grit of rain that made it inside on shoes. Everything has a texture that is easy to read when you let yourself. You move toward the bookshelf and let your hand rest on the spines, feeling the slight give in paper and cloth. There are quiet favorites tucked among new discoveries, notes scribbled in margins by someone who liked to underline a paragraph, and then leave the book for a friend. Those small annotations feel like a private trail between readers, a language of shared attention. They are a reminder that this room has been a place for exchanging thoughts, for staying awake together, over ideas and easy meals, for the small acts that make a house into a home. A small lamp over the kitchen counter casts a warmer light down the hall, creating a corridor of amber. It picks out the edges of a scarf folded in a basket, the faint sheen of a well-used key, the soft weight of a pair of shoes left as if someone planned to slip them on in a minute. These things are not abandoned, they are simply paused mid-life, like a breath held and waiting to be exhaled later. That pause is generous and forgiving. It allows you to be here now with nothing to perform. You sit at the table and fold your hands around the empty mug. The wood under your palms is a little slick from the earlier heat, still warm from the touch of a plate. There is a pencil mark on the corner where someone wrote a joke or an idea and left it for later. The mark is small and smiling in its own way. It feels like a tiny signal between friends, a breadcrumb of companionship that requires no grand explanation. You can rest there, letting the pen's indentation be enough. Lights from the neighboring windows glow softly in the distance. Rectangles of life that are not yours, and yet feel companionable. Their steadiness makes your own light feel part of a network, rather than a lone island. The building settles in its bones with a slow, contented creak. The kind of noise that says, there is history in the place, and that those who live here have learned the rhythms of its air and wood. The sound is easy company. It keeps the quiet from feeling empty. You notice that the room is not a stage. It is a living thing with habits and traces, and the gentle clutter of lives that overlap. That hum of shared life offers a kind of reassurance that is not loud or flashy. It is the subtle knowledge that someone else was here earlier, and that their presence left the house kinder to you. There is a small, unspoken permission in those traces, to be quiet, to occupy space, to let the evening unspool at its own soft pace. You lean back and let your breath slow to match the room. The lamplight warms the curve of your hand. The playlist continues to play low and familiar. The hum of the fridge becomes a companionable undertone. The misaligned objects, the half-turned chair, the jacket left in ease, all of them are part of a quiet grammar that says belonging without loud proclamation. They offer a gentle welcome that you can accept in your own way, in silence, with no need for explanation. You notice, as you ease back into the quiet, that the room remembers the moment before your private evening. The lamp over the side table throws a soft circle of light across a mug that is still warm where someone else set it down. The light keeps the air gentle, not glaring. Like the room is deliberately staying small and familiar for you. You let the softness hold you as you let your shoulders loosen, as if the space itself is exhaling with you. There is an extra chair, angled a little away from the table, as if someone had leaned back to look out the window. The cushion there is pressed, a slight hollow that maps the curve of a body. Your own cushion, beside it, has smoothed again, but not completely. The fabric still remembering the weight that rested on it. These impressions are quiet evidence of company that has already gone on, not as absence, but as a kind of approval, the mild approval of a place that has hosted conversation and laughter and the small oddities that come with being known. A jacket rests on the arm of the chair, folded in a way that suggests it was shrugged off quickly and left with no ceremony. Its sleeve is cool to the touch when you brush it, carrying the faint scent of the city, warm stone, a little rain, the paper of a map folded in a pocket. You do not pry, you only notice. This is part of the domestic language you understand, the way objects speak softly about one another without needing words. The jacket becomes a gentle punctuation mark in the room, a reminder that the night has had shape and will keep its shape without needing to be remade. You walk slowly to the kitchenette and find a small dish in the sink with crumbs at its edge. The smell of citrus oil and sugar lingers, threaded into the air with soap and the hush of late hours. The refrigerator hums like a distant and reliable friend. The sound is steady and uncomplicated, an evening drone that steadies the breath. When you open the fridge, a cheek of leftover salad and a folded napkin look up at you like a benign question. You close the door, keeping the answer to yourself, because there is nothing to resolve. The night is content to remain as it is. On the table, there is a scattering of things. A pair of reading glasses folded and set beside a notebook. A pen uncapped and lying with deliberate casualness. A small stack of photos leaning against a coaster. You pick one up. It shows a group of people in soft focused light, arms draped over shoulders, heads tilted in manners that are familiar and immediate. Their faces are easy and unguarded. The photograph holds a warmth that belongs to you, as if the memory itself is quietly indigenous to this apartment. You feel seen by the sight, not scrutinized, held in a way that is kind and ordinary. The playlist, from earlier plays somewhere in your head, a low afterglow. Song transitions still thread through the room. You think of a particular rhythm that had everyone tapping the table and smiling, and the memory of that rhythm becomes a slow pulse in your chest. It is not a command to relive the evening, but a soft echo that keeps company with you now. The music that remains in the air is like a friend who has stepped into the hallway to fetch a jacket and will be back soon. Until then, it leaves warm footprints on the floorboards. There is a small candle on the mantel, burned down to a gentle pool of wax. Its scent is mild, soap and citrus, maybe a touch of cedar, and you notice how the light from the lamp picks up its glossy edge. The wick is no longer burning, but it seems to have left a gentle blessing in the room, an assurance that things in here were tended with care. You do not need to light anything. The room already feels curated in the softest possible way, as if whoever was here earlier wanted to make sure you would be comfortable returning to this calm. Outside, the city keeps its thin, familiar breath. A bus passes, soft brakes washing past windows, like distant rain. The sound is unobtrusive, a punctuation that acknowledges that life continues beyond these walls. You remain undisturbed. The window glass reflects a dim, living painting of the room. Lamplight and dark glass run together until the edges of furniture blur. Headlights travel in the reflection like little attentive eyes. They do not look in, they only pass, and that passing is a comfort, because it declares that the world is vast and ordinary, and this space is allowed to be small and private. You slide onto the sofa and find the blanket folded over the back, the one with a slightly worn fringe that you favor on nights like this. The fabric is soft against your palms, familiar in the same way a favorite sweater remembers your shape. When you pull it over your knees, the texture cradles in an easy, unshowy way. The sofa yields to you as if acknowledging the balance between solitude and the imprint of others. You do not feel alone in any harsh sense. Instead, you feel contained in a gentle continuity, a sequence of small habits and shared evenings that stretch one into another. On the bookshelf is a row of titles whose spines have been thumbed and rethumbed. A small sticker on the inside cover of one book catches the light. A memento from a night that was both private and public. A club night poster folded. A hand-drawn mark that says someone had been present. You do not scan the sticker for meaning. You accept it as a trace, a neighborly stamp that says this is a place where nights like that are possible and okay. It comforts you to know that this place keeps artifacts of joy, small evidence that life here has been lived with open palms, even if quietly. The kettle clicks gently on the stove. You allow the ritual of pouring water into a cup to be slow and deliberate. The steam rises in a thin, soft column and curls at the lamp's edge before dissolving. You breathe the warm steam in, taking in its honest domestic scent. Each inhale feels small and necessary. It is not a remedy. It is simply part of the evening's wiring. A small, intentional motion that reverberates in your limbs, like a kind hand. You notice the way the cushions have settled into familiar dents, where people have leaned in to talk, or the way a coaster still holds a faint ring of condensation. These things are tender and unadorned, the kind of evidence that says people have been here, have exchanged thoughts and stories, and have left the room ready for quiet. You do not try to preserve these traces or to tidy them away with ceremonious care. You leave them as they are because their presence makes this place feel like a home that acknowledges company without needing to keep it. There is a postcard pinned to the corkboard above the desk with a handwritten note on the back. The handwriting belongs to someone who knows your jokes and your small private rhythms. You read it in a slow, unhurried way, a few lines of everyday affection, an inside reference to a show, a promise to meet again. The words do not insist on anything. They sit like a warm hand on the small of your back, an unobtrusive contact that tells you are remembered, and that remembering has the placid quality of being routine. As the room quiets further, you feel the absence of loud voices as a kind of velvet. It is not empty. It is a space that has just been lived in and is now being allowed to settle. The hush that follows company is soft and measured, not urgent. You let your breathing match its tempo and find comfort in that concordance. The house hums, the lamp glows, the city breathes. The night is not a thing to be conquered. It is a companion on its own terms, patient and low lit. You stay where you are, held by small domesticities. You read a page or two from a book, then tuck it closed and trust in the plain geometry of the room to keep you upright. The jacket on the chair and the faint music memory and the leftover dish in the sink are quiet confirmations that life here includes other people and will continue to, in gentle rotations. For now, the room keeps everything soft and safe. You sit with that, letting contentment arrive in tiny increments, hearing only what it needs to, an occasional footstep 2 floors up, the soft thrum of a refrigerator, the distant hush of tires, and feeling quietly, simply at home. You move through the room without hurry, as if the air itself is set to a slow tempo that matches your breath. The lamp by the side table throws a soft, amber pool of light across the surface, and within that pool, familiar objects sit as if they had been given permission to rest. A mug holds the faint ring where steam rose earlier. The pattern on the ceramic is softened by the low light, and for a moment, you trace that curve with your eyes the way you might trace the edge of a memory. Nothing needs explanation. Nothing needs to be rearranged. You notice the extra chair, slightly angled away from the table. A living thing in the geometry of the room. It is warm at the spot where someone leaned, the cushion still holding the impression. The fabric under your fingertips is smoothed by use, the nap gone in one small crescent where elbows found comfort. The chair keeps a quiet history, the gentle tilt, the way the armrest remembers a laugh without making a sound. You sit there for a pause and feel the giving of the cushion, the familiar support that comes from being in a place shaped by other people's hands. You listen to the building settling. A distant refrigerator hum fills the spaces between thought and the hush beyond the windows. And sometimes the city breathes, a car passing, a conversation far away that turns into a soft, unthreatening rhythm. Rain taps lightly at glass, a fine, patient sound that smooths the edges of the night. The windows hold reflections of the lamp and the streetlights, layering the inside and the out as if 2 rooms are overlapping. One of blankets and books, the other of cool air and distant movement. The boundary between them feels friendly, porous in an easy way. You breathe in, and the scent of citrus soap and hot lemon oil lingers on the counter, braided with the faint, comforting smell of something baked earlier. Clean plate scent sits alongside the warmth of the table where hands rested, and a napkin was unfolded and refolded. The scents are traces, the small evidence of presence that does not insist on being named. They make the apartment feel like a place where routines are shared, where utensils fit the same rhythms, where the rhythm of being at home with another is contained in the leftover steam of dishes cooling on the rack. You notice the playlist still paused on the phone, the tiny pause symbol frozen at a chorus that had been easy to sing along to. The music sits like a bookmark. You have the urge to press play to hear that chord again, but you let it remain where it is. The silence contains the song as much as the song contains the silence. In this holding, the absence is gentle, a third presence that keeps you company without asking anything of you. Your hands rest on the table's edge, warm from where plates had been. The wood has a familiar grain, a little nick near the center, that you have always pretended to forget and then noticed again when the light catches it. You pick up a folded jacket where it was left, draped over the back of a chair, as if the chair had been chosen for convenience and then forgiven for it. The fabric is cool at the shoulder, warmed where it stayed close to a body. The elbow crease is relaxed. You run your fingers along the seam and find the thread holding quietly, a tiny testimony to care. A hand towel with a familiar stripe is folded on the bench, the loop of fabric carrying the scent of an evening shower. You fold it once more, and the motion feels measured, a small ritual of returning things to a neatness that is not strict, only considered. You sink into the couch, and the cushions sigh, a soft, private sound like a shared secret. The throw is draped across the back in a casual, elegant way, and the texture catches your palm. Wool warmed by the day, then cooled by night, still soft with previous touch. The light falls on the pattern in a way that makes the colors melt into one another, and you enjoy that blurring, the softening of edges where the two tones meet. The coffee table holds a small stack of magazines with corners turned, a set of keys left where they were dropped, and a coaster with faint rings that map out an evening. These objects are familiar companions that do not speak, but hold a quiet presence. You let your attention roam slowly, landing on small things. A handwritten note tucked under, a mug, a quick sentence written in a hand you recognize without needing the letters to speak, is a warmth that pulses softly in the chest. The words are not sharp. They are a gentle checkpoint, an acknowledgement that something happened here earlier, and that it is okay to sit with the echo. The handwriting curves in ways that feel known. The ink, a quiet navy against cream. You do not need to decode it, you only acknowledge it like a small lighthouse in the dim. You feel the cool glass of the apartment window under your fingertips when you press your hand lightly against it. Outside, a streetlight throws a halo that pools on the wet pavement. The reflected light becomes a watercolor of scattered color, and you watch how it shifts as a bus passes, as the rain patterns change. The sound of tires on wet asphalt is soft and distant, a gentle metronome that keeps the night moving without hurry. You are soothed by how small the sounds are here, how they fold into the room rather than push against it. You notice the way the room still carries the tempo of conversation. A napkin crumpled just so, cutlery placed down with a certain rhythm, the way a chair sits slightly askew. Memory lingers as atmosphere rather than a replay. It eddies through the spaces and rests on the back of the sofa, in the cool ring on the mug, in the slight warmth left on the table. It is an ambient presence, patient and unassuming. It does not ask for attention. It only exists, and in existing, it gives you permission to be present without explanation. You feel the smoothness of a blanket as you draw it over your lap, the fibers catching the lamp's glow. The weight is small and consistent, and it holds you in a way that feels like being wrapped in a practiced familiarity. The room around you is quiet, but not empty. You can feel the history of the evening braided into the objects, a soft continuity that implies a chosen pattern of living. There is comfort in that continuity, a shared mug, a jacket left in the exact place it would be found, a playlist paused mid-verse as if to say, the night will pick up where it left off when it is ready. You take another breath, slow and unforced, and let the sounds and scents and the warmth settle. The lamplight is steady and forgiving. The small sounds of the evening, rain at the window, the building settling, the refrigerator's distant purr, compose a lullaby that keeps pace with low, easy thinking. Your body relaxes into the couch and your hands rest on the blanket, finding a place that feels like coming home to itself. There is no agenda here, only the gentle permission to be still, within a room that remembers other people having been here and keeps that memory soft and friendly. You allow your attention to drift across details again. An extra fork, a single spoon, the slight smudge on the glass where someone touched it absent-mindedly. These things are small and exacting, ordinary and quiet, and they are enough. They hold the evening like a gentle hand holds a page. You do not need to chase the memory into narrative. You simply sit with the room, the artifacts of company, and the feeling that being here is already enough. You move more slowly than you did an hour ago, and the room seems to notice the change, as if it were expected. The lamp by the sofa softens its halo, and the pool of light on the table holds the shape of things you know by touch. A mug sits where it was set down, its warmth faded to a pleasant, neutral heat that tugs at the skin of your palm when you lift it. The chair across from you tilts a little from where it was pushed back, an easy suggestion of someone having been here, and you let the tilt remain, because the small disorder feels comforting rather than unfinished. The building makes small settling sounds, the kind that are more like breath than motion. Through the window, a street lamp throws a pale wash that joins the lamp's glow, and beyond that, the night presses its quiet against the glass, cool and steady. The air has a gentle weight, a slight evening humidity that carries the faint scent of rain or the memory of it. Your jacket, folded where it was dropped, rests with a soft ridge along the arm of the sofa, the fabric smoothed in places where it was handled earlier. Your fingers find the fold, almost without thinking, tracing a line in the wool, following a familiar seam, the way you might read a letter you have read before. There is no hurry to clear the table. A plate, washed but still carrying a hint of lemon from the dish soap, sits to one side, reflecting the light in a thin crescent. Nearby, a napkin is folded and abandoned, and a pair of keys rests on top of a coaster, the metal cool under your fingertips. The sounds are small, a low hum from the refrigerator that fills the background like a steady, distant tide, the soft, occasional creak of wood as the floor settles, a far-off car moving with a soft roll against wet pavement. None of it requires anything from you. It simply keeps you company. You let your shoulders loosen. The motion to stand, to collect, to rearrange feels optional and slow. When you reach for the blanket slung over the back of the couch, your hands move with a soft deliberation, feeling the texture of the knit before it covers your knees. The fibers are warm from where someone rested there earlier, and the memory of that warmth hangs in the weave, like a quiet signature. You drape the blanket and listen to the faint sigh it makes as it settles against your legs. The room breathes with you, and you find that your breathing follows a calmer pattern, even as nothing has changed except the pace of your own hands. Light maps itself across surfaces in ways that feel familiar. The lamp paints a band on the table where a magazine lies, pages slightly ruffled from being thumbed through. A postcard edges out from the stack, bright with a photo of someplace you have both been and not been lately, its colors softened by the lamp's gentle wash. The jacket's lapel carries a small pin, glinting with a couple of colors that make you smile in a way that is wordless and easy. It is a detail that says someone's presence had an accent, a taste, a style that sits naturally in the room. You notice this and keep noticing, like counting small safe things. The aroma in the air is layered and honest. The lingering sweetness of a shared dessert, the clean note of soap on a dish towel, and a trace of something citrus on the kitchen counter. That could be from an open bottle of cleaner or a slice of lemon left in a glass. These scents fold together without clashing, like conversations that ended without resolution, but without strain. You take a slow breath, and the scents settle in, familiar and non-demanding. They make the space read as lived in, as someone's nightly geography. And that steadiness is easy to rest against. Your movements are economical. You stand to move the plate into the sink and pause at the doorway, noticing the way the hallway light slants in, throwing a long, soft shadow along the floorboards. The pause is not indecision, it is simply a stretch of quiet time that you allow. When you return to the sofa, you do not rush. The cushions have contours that remember where bodies have been, a soft imprint that eases when you settle back. Your hand finds the lamp switch and dims it a fraction, enough to let the margins of the room blur a little. The edges soften and the space seems to approve of the slowness. Small household sounds become intimate companions. The refrigerator hum is a low, steady note. Pipes murmur once or twice, a subtle conversation with gravity. A neighbor moves through their apartment, and the faint rhythm of footsteps reaches you through the wall, a reminder that you are part of a gentle communal exhale. The city beyond the window is hushed but present, a lullaby of distant movement, and the occasional soft echo of laughter that had been there earlier and now is a memory in the air. You hold that memory lightly, like a paper folded into a pocket, and you allow it to make the room feel populated, even when it is quiet. There are textures everywhere to meet your hands. The tabletop is smooth, where it was warmed by a hot dish, slightly tacky, where a glass left a ring. Your palm slides across it and finds a faint heat, still there. Not hot enough to demand action, only enough to remind you of company. The knitted throw at your knees is a pattern of stitches that makes your fingers slow. The sofa fabric yields and then resists in measured increments, like a conversation that knows when to pause. You notice these things slowly, savoring the small confirmations that nothing needs fixing, only presence. You allow yourself to linger at the window. Fingers fog the glass a little where you rest your hand, and the reflection is soft, doubled with the room's light. Beyond that, the night presses and the street lamp pools on the pavement, reflecting wetness in thin lines. A window across shows a glow where someone else is lit by their television, a rectangle of soft light that aligns with yours in a kind of distant companionship. You do not reach out. You simply recognize the parallel and keep your own quiet. Phones sit face down, their screens dark. A message buzzed earlier and was read, its punctuation now part of the evening's fabric. The choice to not respond immediately is comfortable. The room's timing is different now. There is no urgency in returning a call or answering a text. The world is allowed to wait without tension. You find a small pleasure in this permission, in the way being slow feels like a right rather than a lapse. Subtle light falls on objects that carry memory. A folded photograph on the shelf, the edge of a scarf peeking from a basket, a glass with a faint lipstick mark that you clean with a casual swipe and then decide to leave until morning. Each thing carries an echo of earlier voices, of hands passing plates, of a joke that lingered and softened into silence. The room holds those echoes as if they were cushions, rounded and friendly, and you let yourself nestle among them. Time stretches gently. You trace the rim of the mug. Watch the way the lamplight pools and then spreads. Notice how the blanket shifts when you reposition your legs. The slower movement is not a lack, but a deliberate easing into the present shape of the room. You give permission to take up less space and to be held by what remains. Warmth on a chair, the soft scent of soap, the hush of the building. It feels like a small, private ceremony of settling, and you are both participant and witness. You do not feel alone. The space carries a history that is soft and agreeing, full of small marks that say, someone was here, and that their presence is welcome to linger. You listen to the hums and the quiet, to the faint rain and the distant city breath. And in that listening, you find a companionable stillness. The room holds you, and you hold the room, and together you move slowly through the evening without needing to explain anything at all. The room keeps the shape of the evening as if it were a soft object folded into a pocket. You stand or sit beside the low table and notice how the lamplight pools, warm and patient, across a place that was used not long ago. A cuffed sleeve rests on the chair back. An extra glass sits at an angle where hands last let it be, and a small stack of napkins bears the faint crease of someone else's fingers. These things are quiet evidence of company, not as a story to unpack, but as a gentle presence that lingers in the air. You move slowly, letting your fingertips brush the tabletop, where the wood still carries the memory of warmth. The lamp throws a mellow circle, and the edges of that light soften against the evening beyond the windows. Outside, night presses in, cool and steady, the city hushed into a softer version of itself. There is a distant, softened traffic murmur, and the occasional metallic note of something settling on a balcony below. Closer by, the refrigerator offers its low, steady hum, like a companion that does not ask for attention. These sounds fold around the room and make it feel lived in, like a jacket hung on a chair after a long walk. You notice the cushions where people leaned, still shaped by weight that is just lifted. You smooth one with a hand, feeling the nap of the fabric respond with a little whisper, a small surrender to the motion. The throw blanket over the arm of the sofa is slightly askew, a diagonal line that maps the direction of someone who warmed themselves here earlier. The texture of the blanket is soft in the way that keeps stories warm. Cotton with a hint of fuzz where it's been washed and favored. When you press it to your cheek, it smells faintly of soap and citrus, of the small bar of hand wash someone likes to use. Those scents combine with the trailing notes of food left in the room, a hint of garlic, the faint sweetness of something baked, and the air becomes a layered memory that does not demand interpretation. You set a mug down with mindful care, feeling the ceramic give to the table. Its glaze is slightly imperfect, a tiny ridge where the maker's hand steadied itself, and it looks exactly like the mugs your group tends to favor. The chair opposite is angled just so, left with the polite disarray that comes after being comfortable. A jacket, folded with casual intention, rests over its back. The jacket carries the softness of someone else's evening, a trace of cologne that is not sharp, a faint scent of outdoors. You do not catalog it. You accept it as one of the textures of this room, the way low light accepts shapes and leaves them unpronounced. There was laughter here earlier, a gentle rise and fall that is collected in the seams of the room. It collapsed into small echoes that still touch the walls, like a remembered melody. You don't aim to replay it. Instead, you allow the echo to settle, to become part of the steady, unhurried rhythm that now fills the hours. The playlist on the small speaker has gone quiet. A single soft record crackle lingers when you pass your hand over it. The music's silence is not empty, but companionable, like a pause that understands its place in the room. You move through the small domestic rituals with care. You clear a plate with slow, confident movements, not out of obligation, but because the motion helps arrange the evening into softer lines. Running water in the sink makes a small, bright sound that contrasts with the deeper tones of the rest of the apartment. The soap is the same familiar scent you noticed already, and the towel near the sink is a reliable weight of fabric, thick and absorbent. These tasks are quiet and steady. They bring the space back into an ordered hush without erasing the warmth of what came before. Light from the window makes a cool reflection across the glass, and the room receives it without fuss. The night beyond shows a few distant lights, small and patient, like eyes that blink slowly. Sometimes a car passes far off, and the sound rolls thin across the street. The building itself settles. There are the tiny, courteous expansions and contractions of urban structures, the gentle settling that sounds like a breath, exhaled. It is unremarkable and calming in its continuity. You take comfort in those ordinary noises, in their predictable cadence, and feel less alone for the simple fact that the city keeps breathing with you. On the shelf, A book lies open at a page someone last read aloud. The margin of the paper softened by touch. The handwriting, in a small pen, looped over the corner, is familiar. An affectionate shorthand, used among people who know one another well. It is a small sign that this place is one of shared things, favorite lines, a borrowed sweater left at the back of the closet, a card pinned to a corkboard. These are not trophies to display, but objects that quietly attest to a life in which company was expected and welcome. You feel at ease in such a space because its habits reflect an ordinary, honest affection. Your movements slow, and you notice the temperature shift as the night deepens. The air is cooler near the window and warmer by the lamp. Convection currents rise and fall in a house that remembers bodies. You tuck the blanket a little closer to the sofa's edge, appreciating how fabric can be a small, steady boundary against the open air. The texture of the throw under your palm is soft enough to invite a pause. These tactile moments are small rituals that hold you without demand. A stray coaster bears a faint ring from the earlier glass, and you find yourself tracing that circle with a fingertip, following the line like a respectful map. There is no need to tidy everything. The room is allowed to breathe. Leaving certain objects where they fell allows the evening to remain within reach, anchored by consent rather than perfection. You can keep the evidence of company close without feeling obliged to comment on it. As you settle into the armchair, the lamplight wraps around you like a soft, patient presence. The page of the book on your lap warms slightly beneath your hand. You listen to the building's small noises, to the distant, indistinct rhythm of other lives moving softly along their own hours. The room feels familiar and accepting, a place where belongings tell stories in modest ways. An extra chair, a jacket folded without ceremony, a leftover napkin smoothed by careful fingers. It feels like home because it allows you to exist within a web of small, unremarkable intimacies. You breathe in the layered scents and exhale with the weight of someone who was invited and remained. The evening continues to arrange itself into gentle shapes. There is no hurry. The soft lamp keeps watch without asking, and the room keeps the memory of earlier company, like a folded letter in a drawer, not gone, not urgent, simply there when you reach for it. You let yourself stay in that margin of quiet, feeling that the world beyond the windows is present but deferential, giving space for the slow, careful hush that fills the apartment tonight. You move through the room as if remembering each step, as if the floorboards themselves hold the map of where someone else had been, and the light from the lamp catches the small disturbances in the dust motes, like tiny private signatures. The lamp is low, a warm pool on the table, and its circle of light makes everything in that space feel intimate and known. You notice the extra place setting, the edge of a napkin still tucked under a plate, the faint ripple in the cushion on the sofa, where weight has just left, and the fabric is shaped by touch. None of it announces itself, loudly. It simply exists. Quiet proof that company has passed through this evening and left the room more settled, not emptier. A cooling steam fogs the glass of a mug. Someone set down a curl of scent, cardamom maybe, or something citrus, lingering in the space between the mug and the air. The mug sits near the edge of the table, thumb-warmed salt on the glaze, beside a stack of small plates that were rinsed but not quite dried. You can tell the habit of how things were moved, the casual rearrangement of two chairs pulled close, so faces could be near without needing to lean too far in. The jacket folded over the back of a chair keeps a soft outline of shoulders, like an impression. You know that shape. You remember that angle without thinking. It feels small and steady in the dim room. There's a gentle hum from the refrigerator, the kind of sound that becomes almost a companion when the noisy parts of the day quiet down. The building settles in its familiar way, a slight creak in the hallway, the distant sigh of a radiator, the soft footfall muffled by rugs. From the street, you can hear a car pass, and then the hush that follows. A far, even rhythm like breathing from the city itself. The window glass cools under the touch of the night air, and the reflection of the lamp makes a second ghostly room behind it that is the same and not the same. You look, and the reflection holds the empty chair, the mug, the coat, and for a moment that reflected space feels like another quiet version of the room, where the echoes of conversation still vibrate softly in the cups and plates. The scent in the air is layered. Familiar soap from clean hands, the trace of warm food, the dry green undertone of the plant you keep on the sill. These scents fold into one another without any single thing taking over, like voices blended at the end of a conversation when everyone has stopped speaking. But the comfort remains. The napkin has the faintest mark of a tomato. The plates carry the slight sticky gloss of sauce that has become a map of the evening. These are small domestic traces, and they make the room read like a page you have both been writing on. Who came and who stayed, and what was left between them, written in crumbs and steam. The cushions have not yet lost the honest dents they were given by leaning heads and shifting weight back and forth. The throw blanket lies in a soft tumble across the arm of the sofa, where it was folded aside to make room, and its fringe has tiny pulls that you smooth with the pad of a finger. Your touch is quiet. You don't need to fix anything. The room is precisely as it should be, the marks of presence shaping it into something gentle and lived in. An extra spoon rests near the sink, a small, ordinary sign that someone lingered long enough to let utensils elsewise rest, not rushed into the cabinet. This is the kind of domestic intimacy that is quiet and steady, not dramatic like a shared playlist, left, humming on a speaker that clicks off as it reaches the end of a song. Outside, there is a soft dampness to the air. The city smells faintly of wet pavement and warm metal, the kind of night that smooths edges and lowers the volume in your bones. The windows show a band of glass, and then the dark beyond. And when you press your palm lightly against the cool frame, you feel the warmth that still lingers into the room against it. The air inside is slightly warmer, small pockets of heat that hold traces of movement. The place where someone rested their elbow, the warmth curve left on the armrest, the way the light landed across a book spine. You move slowly, and each step is a small negotiation with sound. The floorboards responding in the way they always do. Soft clicks that are familiar and therefore safe. You find the book that was open on the coffee table. The page turned a fraction back from where it had sat. The bookmark is a ticket stub from some show you went to together, once folded precisely, edges softened by fingers. You run your thumb along it and remember how the 3 lines on the ticket shrugged into a conversation afterward. How the laughter moved through the room, like the scent now, a gentle shape. You do not need to name who was here to feel that the room is better for having held them. The memory is not heavy. It is like a favorite sweater draped over your shoulders, comforting, familiar, without fuss. The lamplight makes the kitchen tiles look like slabs of amber, and the sink holds the faint sheen of recently washed plates. The faucet drip is slow and deliberate, a metronome that keeps time with nothing in particular. You stand for a moment at the counter and notice the faint lime foam in the basin where a dish was scrubbed, the small pile of tea leaves in the trash. These are ordinary, honest remnants of an evening spent with someone whose presence was easy. They do not ask you to analyze, to explain, to act. They simply are, and your attention to them feels like paying respect to the quiet care that was present earlier. There is a softness to the light in the hallway as well, where a lamp has been left turned low to guide the way rather than to make anything bright. The shadow edges are gentle, not hard or sudden, and as you walk past, you feel the way the temperature shifts by just a degree, like the room exhaling. The hallway has a little echo of conversation in the way the paintings hang, a touch unevenly. the slight lean of one frame toward the other, as if they, too, had adjusted to the rhythm of the night. You notice these small alignments without needing to give them weight. They exist as proof that the apartment is a shared map, a place where lives and routines can overlap and then separate without strain. In the bedroom, the sheets have the faint curve, where someone sat at the edge, looking out the window, or simply thinking. The pillow still bears the coolness of a head that is moved, and your hand finds the folded jacket across the chair where it was put down. The fabric smells like the person who wore it, not in any overwhelming way, but in a soft, familiar trace that fits with all the other small things the room is keeping. This scent is a comfort that does not demand anything of you. It is simply present, a gentle punctuation in the air. You move through the apartment with a patience that is almost ceremonial, attending to the small details with a relaxed kindness. The lamplight, the hum of the appliances, the slight dampness in the window frames, the way a rug lies slightly askew. Each of these is a piece of the sentence of the night. They tell a story of being together earlier without asking you to retell it. The apartment reads like a letter left on the table, folded into the shape of ease, and you let yourself sit with that ease for as long as you need. The evening is quiet, but not empty. It is full of small, shared traces that make staying here feel like a steady, soft company all by itself. The lamp on the side table throws a warm oval across the wood, and the light catches the faint swirl of steam where a mug was set down not long ago. The heat has left a ring on the surface, a small, obvious map of recent company, and you find yourself tracing that roundness with your eyes more than your fingers. The chair pulled slightly out from the table remembers the shape of another body, the cushion there still holding a soft indentation, as if the room itself is reluctant to smooth itself out. Night presses against the window in a steady, muted way, the city beyond offering a distant, patient breath of sound, cars moving like a slow remembering, a neighbor's late laugh rolling off brick and then away. The air near the sill is cooler than where you sit, and when you let it come over your face, it feels like a hand you've known for a long time. Easy, familiar, unobtrusive. There is a faint scent that threads through the apartment. Citrus from the dish soap, rinsed into the late washed plates. The lingering tang of the sauce you shared. And beneath those domestic notes, a soft, sweet presence. Perhaps a spritz of cologne someone leaves when they pass through, or the memory of a scarf tucked on the coat rack. It is not a scent that claims the room. It rests, shy and content, like a small bird in the corner, and it makes the space feel used in a way that pleases you. You move slowly, mindful of how the floorboards answer underfoot, the small, careful creaks that have always been part of this place. Each sound settles back into the hush without any need for explanation. Across from you, an extra plate, rinsed but not put away, sits next to a folded napkin with a faint smear where a hand steadied it. You notice the way the napkin's fold is imperfect. Someone has left their mark on it, and the imperfection is gentle company. The playlist still serves as a low current in the background, the track, midway, as if pressed pause on a conversation. It's a mix of songs that belong to more than one evening, a tune from a rooftop night, one that was playing the first time you all met for coffee, another that played on the cab ride home, and became a private joke that still loosens a chuckle when you think of it. The music is quiet now, a companion keeping watch rather than calling for attention. When you sit back down on the couch, the throw folds around your legs with the ease of habit. The fabric is worn in the places where hands and hips have rested over time. The texture is softer than it looks, and it seems to remember warmth, the way the chair does. You press your palm to it and feel the lingering heat, the gentle echo of bodies that were here a few hours earlier. It is not ownership, but evidence of closeness. Plates shared, stories passed in half-formed sentences, laughter that rose and settled like birds. The room holds those moments the way a pocket holds a small, folded, Note, secure, folded inward, safe from being unfolded before you are ready. The window is a dark mirror, and in that reflection you can see the outline of the space, the lamp, the slightly crooked picture over the mantel, the jacket draped over the back of the spare chair. The jacket is familiar, its cuffs worn at the edges, a tiny patch where someone repaired it with a care that suggests history. It was left there in the rush between leaving and staying. An easy, unremarked act that means everything and nothing. It tells you that someone once crossed this room in a hurry, that they lingered for a breath, adjusted the collar, and moved on. The jacket softens the silhouette of the chair into a human suggestion, and that is enough. On the coffee table, a pair of mismatched coasters carry faint circles from glasses. One coaster bears the print of a show you all saw, the other an art house logo, small private signposts, and the map of the life you share. Nearby, a postcard with handwriting that curls in the margins sits half hidden beneath a magazine. You don't open it now. The presence of it, unexamined, is enough to remind you that stories are ongoing here. Sentences paused, ready to be continued when morning arrives, and the world resumes its slow, ordinary motion. Outside, the rain begins in little, polite ticks against the window, a sound that doesn't urge but rather accompanies. It stitches the city's usual noises into a softer cloth. The humidity settles near the sill, and you can smell it, a cool, leafy scent that rounds off the room's citrus and soap. It fills the corners with a damp, clean hush that makes the lamplight feel more tender. You turn the lamp shade just enough so the light tucks itself closer to the table, keeping the rest of the room in comfortable shadow. Shadow here is not absence, but a kind of permission. It allows things to rest where they are without the insistence of being seen. You move a cup closer, finger tracing the thin lip where someone once took the final sip. It feels like a small ritual to adjust the things left behind, a quiet tending. There is no need to tidy everything tonight. Some items linger because they are anchors. A mug with a chipped rim that belonged to a friend who drinks tea with a firmness that makes you smile. A folded scarf with a faint stripe, left where someone shrugged it off. These objects speak in a language that belongs only to you and the people who pass through here. A shorthand of habits and preferences, and small, unspoken loyalties. In a corner where the light falls thinner, a low shelf holds plates stacked in an unhurried tower. One plate carries a faint smear of sauce near the rim, and the fork beside it is angled as if it had been set down while a story continued. The fork's place is an honest pause, a punctuation that implies continuation. You let yourself imagine the sentence being picked up later. More talking, more silence, more comfortable gaps where thoughts could stretch without urgency. The idea of continuation is soft, like the throw across your knees. It is a simple faith in ordinary returns. You listen to the building's quiet settling, that fine, constant sound of a place breathing. It is a sound you have learned to trust, a background population of noises that declare safety without having to say so. The refrigerator hums in a steady low, a small machine heartbeat. The radiator clicks once, then sighs, adjusting to the cool. Each sound fits into its small place and leaves space between notes for your own breathing. Your chest eases into that space like a hand into mitten. There is an ease in the way the room resists being cleared of those recent traces. It is a deliberate softness, as if the apartment itself prefers the suggestion of company to absolute emptiness. That preference is a kind of generosity. It allows you to move through the evening with the grace of someone who belongs here, not as a claim, but as a habit of comfort. You are allowed to keep the room as it is for a little longer. Plates waiting, a jacket resting, songs mid-track, the dim lamp, and the rain that keeps time outside. You let your attention settle on these small details without urgency. Your hands fold into your lap. The fabric of the couch gives a little, accommodating you without fuss. Somewhere, a small laugh from earlier, a short bright sound, replays for a moment, not as an ache, but as a warm, domestic picture. 3 people leaning into half-remembered jokes. The table strewn with napkins, the clink of glass. It is private, an echo that comforts without demanding. The room keeps those echoes close, not to preserve them perfectly, but to allow them to slip into the quiet like a neighbor, stopping by to say hello, on their way home. There is nothing you need to do. The night is already doing what nights do, thinning the edges of the day, softening sharpness, making room. You stay, here in the middle of it, where warmth lingers like an open hand. You are present to the small traces of others, and to the way their absence is not emptiness, but a comfortable breath. The apartment surrounds you with ordinary things that belong to a life, lived openly enough to share, and that belonging settles over you like a familiar coat, worn at the elbows, comforting, and wholly yours, to accept or set aside when morning comes. For now, you remain in the hush, letting the lamplight hold the shapes of the room and the rain steady the air outside, content in the simple, unspoken knowledge that this space has room for more than one heart, and it has made room for yours. The lamp on the side table keeps a warm, round pool of light while the rest of the room settles into a softer twilight. The glow makes the tabletop look like a small, steady harbor. You move slowly around it, hands light on familiar surfaces, aware of the evening that just happened as if the air itself remembers. The extra chair is still pulled out, as if someone might at any moment return and tuck their legs under the table. The jacket folded over the back of that chair carries the shape of someone who was here. It keeps a quiet scent at its seams, something like soap and the particular warmth of another person's evening. You place your palm on the fabric without making a sound, and it feels ordinary and safe to touch what has been left behind. There is a quiet settling in the apartment, a small exhale that follows conversation and motion. The plates in the sink are stacked in a careless, familiar way. One bowl nested in another, a fork with a curving shadow. The kettle has cooled, but holds a faint memory of steam in the spout. You run a finger along the rim of a mug, feeling the faint ring of where a coaster once rested. The mug still smells like late-night tea, citrus, and a trace of someone else's favorite sweetener. The scent folds into the sofa's fabric, into the small cotton throw, draped over the arm, into the place where shoulders leaned and stories were shared. It is not loud, it is present. Outside the window, the city breathes in measured patterns. Cars pass at a moderate, polite pace, their lights brief and distant. The night is genuine and modest, not dramatic. Street lamps haloing puddles, a soft smear of light where rain has dampened the pavement. A minute breeze brushes against the glass and brings a cool note of wet pavement and distant green. You notice the way the cool pushes softly at the edges of the window frame, but the room holds its warmth. The radiators hum very low, as though whispering along to the city's slow rhythm. Everything conspires to a comfortable quiet. You sit and tilt the lamp's shade with a small, careful motion, watching the light shift over a stack of magazines. The covers carry faces and places you recognize. Photographs that were once part of a different kind of evening. An art spread from a gallery opening, a portrait from a friend's newsletter, a small photograph of hands clasped over coffee on a table that looked a lot like this one. The image feels like a secret nod between people who know similar corners of the world. It is perfectly normal to keep those things within reach. They are part of the room's gentle personality. You let the edge of the magazine brush your thumb and notice the way paper takes on the softness of evening. There are small domestic traces that map the evening without saying much. A napkin folded with the kind of sloppiness that only comes from good conversation. A note in someone else's handwriting tucked under a glass to keep it from slipping on the table. A playlist on the speaker now stilled, the last song hanging like a comfortable exhalation. The music is familiar without insisting, a low, easy track that used to play at gatherings in other living rooms and small bars, the kind that feels like a background smile. You let the silence follow its tail, letting the memory of sound linger without trying to catch it. Light slips differently across the room now, catching on the curve of a lamp base, resting on the spine of a book that has been read and reread until the cover softens. You reach for the book, and the pages make a small, soundless rustle. The paper is warm from being held earlier, and you turn a page as if to test the continued presence of the evening. The sentences inside are not urgent. They are the gentle kind that settle without nudging. You lay a thumb on the margin, mindful of not disturbing the careful balance of stillness that stretches through the apartment. The kitchen keeps a low, reassuring hum, the refrigerator settling into its rhythm, a distant fan cycling. There is a small bowl of olives with a few pits left, the scent faint, the oil gone, almost honeyed in the lamplight. A wooden spoon rests in a jar, its handle worn smooth where hands have moved it many times. The surfaces in the kitchen are calm and used, the kind that accrue small, honest marks over years of shared meals. In one corner, a small tin holds a collection of pins and mementos, a discreet arc of color on an enamel pin, a friendship bracelet braided from bright thread, a ticket stub folded into a neat square. These things are private and public at once, small anchors that say quietly, "Who passes through this space?" You notice your breath slowing as attention curves inward, not to withdraw, but to attend. The evening's edges soften, and you find room to be alone and still contained by the traces that insist you were not solitary for long. Your hands come to the cotton throw, smoothing it as if making room, and finding that the fabric remembers the shape of two. The weave is slightly snagged in one spot, a small imperfection that feels like proof of use and care. You run a fingertip along it and then tuck the throw back into place with gentle, habitual motions. There are shadows that belong to ordinary objects and shadows that feel like memory. A lamp casts the silhouette of a chair onto the wall. The outline is familiar and comforting. The window reflects back a softened version of the room, doubled and distant, like a companion just beyond reach but definitely present. You stand and press your forehead briefly against the cool glass, letting the city light smear across your lids. The contact is small, wordless, and it is exactly what the night needs. Nothing elaborate, only the truthful exchange between inside and out. On the bookshelf, a framed photograph leans, its glass catching the lamp's glow. The image is of a small group on a balcony, arms casually draped over one another, faces turned toward a pool of city light. You know the people in that photograph and the way that chosen family becomes known, through shared dinners, late calls, the kind of support that shows up as practical help or shared laughter. The picture is unforced. It is simply a table set with people who fit together. Seeing it now reminds you that belonging is often quiet and ordinary, present in items left where they are likely to be seen. The night deepens a few notches, becoming a softer, more distant thing. You move toward the sofa and fold the throw around your shoulders. The fabric hugs you with that uncomplicated warmth that comes from cotton and memory. You feel the weight of the jacket over the chair, like a contained story. The way its shape seems to say that the evening is closed, but open enough to return. The room holds an even, patient atmosphere. Nothing presses, nothing insists. You stay like this for a while, attending to small tasks that feel like rituals, tucking away a stray receipt, rinsing a fork until the water runs clear, placing the note on the table where you can see it in the morning. Each action is soft and unobtrusive, contributing to a gentle order that honors what came before without erasing it. There is comfort in this kind of careful attention. It is the same calm that turns a used cup into a sign of a good night, and a pulled-out chair into an invitation that does not need words. Eventually, you allow your attention to curve further inward, carrying the room with you. The lamp continues its patient halo, the city keeps its measured breathing, and the apartment holds its small, affectionate evidence of company. You remain present to the quiet, to familiar scents and textures, to the way light settles across the table. There is a steady kindness to the evening, a hospitality that does not require explanation. You rest in that kindness, feeling the pleasant weight of being in a place that remembers you, that keeps traces of others in a way that makes solitude feel like a choice rather than an absence. The night stays gentle, and you stay with it, unsurprised and quietly relieved by its soft, unhurried company. You move through the room slowly, the way you move around a place you know has just been held. The lamp on the side table gives off a soft circle of light that touches the spine of a book, left face down, the arc of its glow making the paper look almost warm. The air keeps a small, pleasant weight from earlier, steam from dishes, the faint trace of citrus soap, the residual warmth of bodies that have been close enough to leave the cushions shaped differently. Nothing is missing, nothing needs rearranging. You simply notice the ways this space remembers what happened here, not in loud ways, but in impressions. The extra chair is still slightly out of place, angled as if someone had turned it too. Better see the television or the window. Its cushion is compressed in the way that promises recent use. You run your fingers over the fabric and feel the small lines the cushion keeps, like a map of a conversation that has already concluded. A folded jacket rests over the back of the upright chair, one sleeve hanging down the side. The jacket carries the shape of another person, the scent of their cologne softened by the air, not sharp or intrusive, just a memory pressed into fabric. You consider folding it onto the mantle or leaving it where it is, and you choose to leave it. This room likes to keep the traces of other people where they fell, like gentle punctuation. There is a plate on the kitchen counter with a fork laid across it, a single olive still resting at the edge. The plate is rinsed, but not drying, the rinse leaving the surface satiny, under the lamp when you glance over. Near the sink, there is a towel folded with the care of someone who habitually leaves things approachable rather than hidden. The hum of the refrigerator is steady and low, a domestic bass line that makes the apartment feel alive without urgency. Outside the window, the city breathes in long, deep rhythms. A distant car moves past, tires whispering on wet pavement. The rain earlier has gone to a faint drizzle that keeps the night smelling clean and softened. You sit for a moment on the sofa, feeling the impression of the cushion beneath your weight. The couch remembers the shape of their presence as clearly as you remember, the warmth of a hand laid lightly on a knee. There is no ache in that memory, only the quiet, full kind of recognition that makes the room feel occupied, even in absence. You breathe slowly, letting the rhythm of the air fill the small space between your ribs and the lamplight. The sound of your own breath is soft here, like a companion that has learned not to insist. A glass sits near the armrest, faint rings on the tabletop, where condensation dried in patterns that look like little moons. You pick it up and notice a lipstick mark at the rim, barely there, the kind of small human evidence that makes the evening feel lived in. You set the glass back down, not caring about the mark or feeling the need to erase it. The mark belongs to the time that was, and the time that is now is comfortable with that proof. The room keeps those things, like a ledger of pleasant, ordinary moments. On the coffee table, there's a small pile of postcards, some with scribbled notes and stamps from cities you've both loved. They fold back into the corners of the paper, where fingers once held them, a softness that speaks of travel and of being together in places that smelled of different nights. A playlist plays at low volume, not enough to demand attention, but present enough. So the songs are like soft punctuation between the quiet. The music is one you both like, the kind that is easy to hum without thinking, the kind that holds no instruction, only company. The evening light leans against the window pane, and the wet street reflects it back, making marble ribbons of the city below. The window is slightly fogged near the bottom, where heat met the cooler air outside. A faint oval of clarity shows where someone might have rested a hand against the glass. You imagine the outline of a palm leaving its ghosting on the cool surface, and the image feels like a friendly footprint. There is a small stack of magazines on the sideboard, each margin softened by turned pages, each cover bearing a crease where someone rested a thumb. These are the daily artifacts of people who live fully in small ways. You walk to the kitchen and open the cupboard where mugs are kept. One is still in the drying rack, hand-painted, its glaze chipped along the rim in a pattern you know. You pick it up and feel the familiar weight, the warm, barely noticeable scent of tea. There is a small smear of jam at its base, left from a shared breakfast earlier, or perhaps a hurried midnight toast. The smear is inconsequential and kind. You leave it there and close the cupboard slowly, enjoying the quiet ease of routines that let traces remain. Light catches on a small framed photograph on the bookshelf, the image slightly askew, as if someone had tilted it while reaching for another book. The photograph shows a group of people in a backyard at dusk, heads bent close together, smiles relaxed like they belong to a private constellation. You notice the way one shoulder brushes another, a kind of light contact that reads like comfort. The photograph resonates with the current evening, as if a similar warmth continues in this room, folded into the fibers of the throw blanket, draped over the back of the chair. You move back to the living area and kneel to tuck your feet under you, the fabric of your jeans cool against your skin. The texture of the throw is soft where you press into it, a patchwork of threads that knows how to cradle. The low lamp casts soft shadows that make the room feel like a safe harbor. The hush of the building settling around you is a subtle score that keeps you company. The silence is not empty, it is full of small sounds. The distant clink of pipes, the muffled conversation from a stairwell, the steady hush of rain, and each one threads through the room like a ribbon. There are small choices, left in the evening, that feel optional and pleasing. You turn the page of the book on the table, just to feel the motion. You lift the mug, not to drink, but to enjoy the familiar heft of it. You press one shoulder into the curve of the sofa and let the room hold you for a moment. The jacket on the chair leans into the same direction, as if agreement with the flow of the room. You do not rush to tidy, to fix what is out of place, or to make the space uniform again. The imperfections are part of the proof that others were here, and they make the quiet more companionable. You consider calling someone, a small check-in, with a friend who knows how to say nothing and mean everything. You put the phone down instead and listen to the playlist fold into itself, a string of soft notes passing like an exhale. There is no urgency to connect. The knowledge that the city keeps moving outside, that friends exist within and beyond this apartment, is calming in itself. It is enough to be in a room that has been shared and is now letting you be alone without demanding that you perform solitude. The room seems to breathe around you, the lamp dimming with a deliberate gentleness, as if following the rhythm of the night. The air smells faintly of citrus and a soap. You reach for without thinking, the scent mingling with the humid trace of rain. You let your hands rest on your knees and notice the subtle warmth left by the body that had sat here earlier. An echo in the cushion that is as precise as a memory and as soft as a hand on your back. The absence of voices becomes comfortable rather than noticeable. Quiet feels like a continuation, not an interruption. You allow your thoughts to drift to small, ordinary things. What to cook tomorrow? The neighbor's cat that appears at the same time each morning. A book you might open later this week. These thoughts fold into the room like pieces of clothing into a familiar closet. They do not need to be acted upon. They simply sit with you, content to be considered and set down again. The evening keeps you company in this way, not insisting but welcoming. A steady presence that understands the pleasure of being quietly at home. When you finally stand and move toward the bedroom, your steps echo less than before, softened by the rugs and the memory of conversation suspended in the air. You leave the lamp on in the living room, its glow a modest beacon that makes the apartment feel inhabited in the kindest possible way. The jacket remains where it fell, the plate at the sink remains rinsed but waiting, and the playlist continues, gentle and unobtrusive. The room will hold these traces until the next time it gathers people into itself, and that knowledge wraps around you like a shawl, slow and winding, restful in its ordinary constancy. The lamp by the sofa gives the room a soft oval of light that keeps the rest of the apartment gentle and forgiving. You notice the way the light pools on the wood of the coffee table, the warm circle lingering where hands rested not long ago. There is a slight warmth in the grain, the kind that stays after cups and conversations have left them. The air around it feels held, as if the room is keeping everything in a kind, patient place for a little while longer. You move slowly, letting each small motion feel familiar. The jacket folded over the back of the extra chair has the crease where an arm once slipped free. You smooth the fabric with the heel of your hand, not to correct anything, but to acknowledge that it is still here, still part of the arrangement. The cushions on the sofa remember the shape of where you sat, and the subtle give of them settles again beneath your weight as you press your palm to the fabric. It is a quiet exchange between you and objects that know you are the kind of person who leaves a little imprint on a room. There is a faint hum of the refrigerator that steadies itself against the edges of other, softer sounds. Outside, distant traffic murmurs like an underline to the night, softened by the glass and the late hour. Somewhere above, a radiator clicks and sighs in a slow, old rhythm. The building makes tiny adjustments as it settles. The noises are familiar and unremarkable, like small exhalations after a long conversation. They do not demand focus, they simply exist, and, because they are steady and known, they help your breathing find a smoother pace. The table where dinner rested has a couple of plates stacked neatly. The fork left askew on top. A tea towel, damp at the corner, is folded and draped over the rim of the sink. The scent that lingers is layered and easy to trace. Olive oil and roasted pepper. The faint acidity of lemon. The cleaner note of soap. There is a softness to the smells. A quiet evidence of presence rather than the sharpness of something new. They tell you the evening passed here, that bodies lean near one another and spoke in a language of small gestures. You feel the afterglow of that warmth without needing more than the memory of it. A small pile of mail sits on the console by the door, the top envelope bearing a neat, familiar handwriting. There is a postcard tucked beneath it, from someone who loves the same little private jokes you do. The image on the front is of a narrow street where lights hang low, and the back contains a few warm, looping words. You trace the edge of the card with your thumb, appreciating the domestic evidence of being known. This is not a performance of belonging. It is simply what belonging looks like here. Things left where they fell. Notes folded into the corners of a life shared with people who are chosen rather than assigned. On the windowsill, there's a small circle of condensation from a mug you used earlier. The mug itself is a little chipped at the rim, the glaze worn where your fingers always rest. You pick it up and feel the residual heat. A gentle reminder that warmth travels and lingers. The glass beyond shows the night pressed close. The city light softened into a distant constellation. You like the way the panes reflect the lamplight back into the room, doubling the glow and making the space feel less singular. The night outside feels respectful, not invasive, and you settle into that reciprocity. Your breathing slows with no particular effort. It is a natural response to how things are arranged around you. Low light, the soft buzz of appliances, the textures of fabric that hold traces of bodies. You notice your chest expanding and contracting with a kind deliberateness that matches the room. The rhythm is even and unhurried, like a companion that doesn't speak but simply keeps time beside you. There is relief in that quiet companionship, the kind that arrives when someone has been here before and left you all the small evidence of their being. You run your fingers along the spine of a book on the shelf, the paper slightly softened at the corners from pages turned aloud somewhere in this apartment. A bookmark, a bus ticket, or a clipped photograph peeks out from between chapters, a tiny archive of moments. You enjoy the uncomplicated intimacy of these objects. They do not insist on explanation. They are what they are, kept close, familiar. A record of evenings spent in easy company. You let the presence of them settle around you like a soft throw. The lamp casts shadows that are generous, not sharp. They fall across the rug in a pattern that makes the room feel larger, by suggestion, by allowing the edges to blur. Your feet find the texture of the rug, cool and slightly fibrous against your soles, and you appreciate the small contrast between the warm lamp and the cooler floor. There is a steadiness to sensations like this, a balance that keeps the space from feeling static. Even the silence is layered. You can hear the faint scrape of a chair leg, where it shifted earlier, the soft breath of air moving past the window frame. You notice the way your palms warm as you cradle the mug, how the heat spreads through your fingers and into your wrists. It is a contained sensation, private and exact. The steam from the tea rises and curls, carrying the gentle scent of orange peel and something herbal. It threads through the room and mingles with the other familiar smells, making a small domestic perfume that is entirely your own. You close your eyes for a moment and let the combined scents, sounds, and textures fold around you like an old song. There is no urgency here. No list of tasks presses at the edges of the evening. The world outside the apartment feels distant and patient, like a conversation that will continue tomorrow. Inside, the rhythms you created earlier are still present. Cutlery lined up, wine glasses rinsed and set to dry. A playlist paused on a track that always plays well against low light. The music, if it were on, would be easy and familiar, the kind that holds stories without dragging them into speech. You remember the laughter from earlier, soft and fewer words than you might think, and you let that memory warm you without needing to replay every detail. The room seems to breathe in time with you. Fabrics lie with the ease of things that have been used and appreciated. The chair by the table is ever so slightly askew, a small evidence of someone leaving without fuss. You accept that looseness as part of the comfort here. It is a domestic indecency that reads like welcome. The apartment keeps the traces of other people in tender ways, giving you permission to exist within the same softness. You feel quietly held by the arrangement of objects and by the sense of recent presence. It is not theatrical. It does not announce itself. It is a simple, steady kind of care built from small things. A mug with a chip, a folded jacket, a postcard with a familiar joke. Your breathing slows a touch more, not because you have to, but because everything around you is designed to make doing nothing feel allowed. You sit with that permission, letting the household sounds and lamplight balance you. The evening continues to go on without pressure, and you remain here, comfortably arranged within its gentle margins. You move slowly through the room, not to tidy or change anything, but because movement feels right when the house is soft, with the after of company. The lamp on the side table throws a warm coin of light that spills across a scattering of cups and a plate, with a few crumbs still gathered near the rim. The extra chair, nudged slightly out from the table, keeps the shape of conversation in its angles, an imprint of where someone had sat and leaned toward a story. You stand by the window for a moment and let your hand rest on the cool glass. feeling the faint give where the frame meets the sill. Night presses in at the edges, not a presence so much as a texture, a darkened fabric that makes the lamp's light more intimate. Sounds settle like feathers. The refrigerator hums in the background, steady and domestic. Somewhere far off, a car passes and the tires whisper against wet pavement, which reminds you that the air is still holding the day's humidity. From the street, distant lights pulse and soften, turned down by the hour. Inside, a faint creak comes from the bookcase, where a spine shifted when someone reached for a title and left it slightly askew. The hush is recent rather than total. It carries the echo of voices that have gone quiet, laughter folded into the cushions, a chuckle that still feels tucked into the corners. You sit on the arm of the couch where the fabric has been smoothed by use. The cushion gives under the weight of you and sighs, the fibers remembering how they were shaped earlier. Your fingertips find the seam of the throw draped over the back, tracing the soft line of it. The knit is warm and a little damp, where it absorbed the evening's warmth, and that small residual heat is pleasing to press against your wrist. The scent in the room layers itself in quiet ways. Garlic and lemon from the little dish you shared, the soap someone used at the sink, the clean cotton of a shirt folded over the chair. There's a soft, familiar cologne in the air, the kind that does not shout but lingers like a memory of a shoulder near yours. You notice the small, domestic evidence of having shared time. A napkin with a faint smear rests beside an empty glass that still has a ring of condensation at its base. A board game lid sits slightly open, the tokens tucked in, but the lid not quite closed, as if the night paused and left the pieces where they fell. A phone lies face down on the table, its screen dark. A playlist paused mid-track earlier and left to its own quiet. You can almost hear the last chord hung in the room, like the residue of melody in the air. Your breathing lengthens and slows of its own accord. Without the need to speak or respond, your attention turns small and simple. You press the heels of your hands against your closed eyes for a moment, and when you open them, the lamp's light seems to soften further, as if the room itself has been taught to lower its voice. The jacket folded over the back of the chair has a gentle weight, a worn elbow, and a faint line where someone had brushed against a handrail earlier. It carries the scent of being worn out and about, the kind of detail that feels like a shorthand for a life, lived nearby and known. You move from the couch to the kitchen and keep your hands occupied with small, quiet tasks. Dishes are rinsed gently, the water a soft, steady sound in the sink. You do not hurry, the motion is methodical and comforting. The dish towel is warm from the dryer, and fibers catch at your fingers, grounding them. When you set a cup to dry, you pay attention to the little noises. The soft clink, the way droplets gather and fall, the whisper of cloth across ceramic. These are simple closures, not obligations, and they make the air feel a little lighter, like a room folding itself back into itself. Light touches memory in domestic folds. The scatter of postcards on the windowsill, tiny, cheerful notes from friends, carries the handwriting of nights and places you have shared. A magnet on the fridge holds a ticket stub from a show you both loved. The ink faded, but the edge is intact. Objects like these do not ask for stories. They allow you to remember without narrating, to sit in the warmth of recollection, without having to tell it to someone else. You find a mug with a faint lipstick imprint at the rim, and it makes you smile in a small, private way. The smile is not for anyone to see, only for the room and for the idea that someone had been here earlier, comfortable enough to leave such small evidence. The sense of belonging in this is not loud. It is an easy, dependable thing, like a familiar sweater draped over your shoulders. The way the apartment holds those moments feels like company that has moved on but left the light on. There is a slow intimacy to domestic silence. The wall clock ticks with a soft, unobtrusive rhythm, each click a small punctuation. The fabric of the sofa yields again when you sink into it, and the lamp casts longer shadows that blur the edges of furniture. Outside, condensation beads on the glass, and leaves on the balcony shimmer with the remaining dampness. The air smells faintly of wood and something green, perhaps the basil that was on the counter earlier, now resting in a small glass of water where its stems soak. The scent is fresh and uncomplicated, and it anchors the space like a gentle bookmark. You run your fingers along the edge of a book left open on the coffee table. The pages fanned where someone had stopped reading. The margin notes in a familiar hand. An underlined passage that you both lingered over earlier. There is a comfort in the presence of shared attention, the way two people can pause at the same sentence and let it hang between them. The marks remain, small attestations of thought without explanation. Time loosens. Without the need for conversation, your senses expand into the room's textures. You notice the slight coolness under the table where air moves more quietly, the way your socks drag softly across the rug when you stand. The rug has a pile that ruffles under your toes, and you think of how it captured footprints earlier in the evening, impressions of guests and laughter. The soundscape is sparse, the hum of the fridge, the distant rhythm of the city, the rustle of fabric as you shift. Each small sound is a familiar neighbor, and none demands a reply. You let your attention rest on the lamp's pool of light, on the way it picks out the grain of the wood tabletop, and the small coaster with a ring left from a glass. The wood carries the warmth of being touched, smoothed by hands over time, and the coaster bears the faint shadow of conversation. These things are quiet proof of being seen and of seeing in return, a loop of presence that needs neither explanation nor applause. When you return to the couch, you bring with you a sense of being accompanied by the room itself. The cushions welcome the shape of you again, and the throw wraps loosely against your legs. The evening has a residue that feels like a possession shared and then returned, a soft, communal atmosphere that lingers in the air. You do not force any feeling upon it. You allow the stillness to be what it is, a comfortable aftermath, cozy and slow. Your thoughts thin in a gentle way, like steam dissipating after a pot is taken off the heat. The need to interact diminishes, replaced by an appreciation of sensation. You notice the gentle stick of the mug's handle in your palm, the way the fabric at your knees collects the heat from the lamp, the steady, unobtrusive chorus of the apartment settling into night. The scene does not demand resolution. It only invites you to inhabit these small details for as long as you wish, to be quietly held by the domestic geometry of the room that remembers recent warmth and leaves a space open for whatever comes next. You move through the room with the unhurried carefulness reserved for late hours, the kind of slow that makes small noises sound like conversation. The lamp on the side table throws a low circle of light, warm and slightly yellow, and the rest of the room holds close to that glow. In the pool of that lamp, your hand passes over a wine glass that cooled into a soft halo of condensation, the faint breath of its evening still visible on the table. Moments ago there were two, then one, then the quiet. You are the part that remains, and the room keeps the shape of the company like a held breath. Your shoulders, which had been briefly high and engaged, ease without effort. The muscles around your neck smooth into place. You notice the sensation rather than decide it. The body's responses happen gently when the space around you acknowledges the night. The couch has an indent where someone leaned back and laughed into the cushion. It is a subtle depression, a map of presence that asks nothing and gives permission. You settle into the edge of that softened fabric, the arm of the couch cool where your forearm rests, then warming as your skin meets it. The kitchen holds the evidence of shared minutes. A cutting board with a faint smear of jam, two plates stacked together like a small surrender, a cloth towel folded over the sink. You run a fingertip along the rim of a plate, and the ceramic is still warm. as if someone just set it there and stepped away into the hall. The refrigerator hums with a steady domestic rhythm, a companion sound that steadies the quieter ones. Distant traffic softened by night, the whisper of pipes, a neighbor's music trailing off somewhere above. These sounds form a gentle lattice that supports the silence. They are reliable and modest and entirely ordinary. You notice scent the way you notice soft light. There is a trace of citrus from a soap bottle left on the counter, the lingering sweetness of something baked earlier, a candle that was extinguished, but left a faint warmth on the wax. The air carries the smell of clean fabric from the jacket draped over the extra chair, a jacket you know well and have lent your shoulder to before. The jacket rests as if taking a break from its own motion. You find yourself smoothing the cloth with your palm, the fibers catching between your fingers, and the small, habitual movement calms you. It feels like tending to something familiar. There are small, queer traces that sit like comfortable punctuation in the room. A postcard folded into the corner of a bookshelf, colors faded from being handled and loved. A playlist paused on the smart speaker, a soft track of voices you both recognized without needing to name. A pair of matching enamel pins tucked into a drawer, one missing its mate by a night or two. These things are not proclamations. They are the quiet grammar of a life shared. The evidence of chosen company that does not press itself on you now, but rests with the confidence of having been present. You move toward the window and let the glass cool your palms. Outside, the city breathes at a distance. Lights that were once lively are now patient, small halos against the dark. Rain has barely tapped the glass in the last hour, a touch that left the world clearer and softer. The night smells like wet pavement and the green of trees, the kind of evening air that feels like an unbuttoned coat. Back inside, the lamp keeps the room in a safe amber. The contrast between warmth within and the hush beyond is gentle, like a hand over the nape of your neck. Each small object holds a memory that is not heavy. A cup with a lipstick mark on the rim, a coaster with a scuff from a too enthusiastic gesture, a folded program from a show you both liked, crinkled in the corner as if it had been read aloud. None of these require words. They are soft evidence, like footprints on a soft floor. You let your attention rest on them. You do not need to catalog or explain. The recognition itself is enough to soothe an edge that you may not have known was there. You ripple the blanket across your knees, appreciating its weight, the woven pattern gentle against the skin of your legs. Fabric has a way of reassuring that is tactile and honest. Your fingers trace the seam at the edge. The thread is slightly frayed, where it caught on something earlier in the week. Every nick, every small imperfection, keeps the object honest and familiar, and that honesty is what settles you. The lamp's light slides along the weave and makes the fibers look like a tiny landscape, and the thought of that small landscape being part of your evening is unexpected comfort. There is no pressure to rewrite the past hour. The room's history is uncomplicated. It keeps the warmth from bodies and the sound from laughter, as if it were a quiet heirloom. You can feel the release in your chest as the house accepts the evening, and your breathing loosens in answer. The rhythm of your inhale and exhale finds a softer pace, not because you told it to, but because the surroundings invite it. The sense of being observed slips away. You feel accompanied rather than inspected, seen in a way that allows for stillness. You notice how your hands move differently in this softened space. Where they might have been busy earlier, they now rest and explore slowly. You pick up a mug, and the ceramic fits into your palm like a familiar shape, the heat feathering out into your skin. There is a faint smear of someone else's touch on the mug, a thumbprint you recognize without thinking. It is a small presence threading through the object. There is no longing in it, only a peaceful acknowledgement that time had company and still has its echoes. The sofa cushions retain the gentle architecture of a conversation. They remember leaning backs and a shared silence that was not empty. You press gently into a cushion and feel its memory give way under your weight. It offers a kind of forgiveness to the body, a yielding that is not indulgent but steady. This physical yielding allows your own tensions to soften without announcements. Muscle by muscle, you notice parts of yourself recalibrating into repose. Light keeps its careful choreography. The lamp is the main actor, but there are smaller notes. The faint glow of a phone face left down on the coffee table. The tiny indicator of a low night lamp in the next room. The reflective pulse from a street lamp that crosses the rug for a moment and moves on. These slivers of light are kind in their brevity. They give the room character without drawing attention. Your eyes welcome them and let them dissolve. There is an ease to the domestic ritual, unfolding in small ways. You rinse a spoon and set it on the draining board. The gentle clink, almost inaudible. You fold the towel and place it over the back of a chair. You align the coasters. These are movements that honor the evening without attempting to keep it. Each small care feels like a quiet promise that the room will be ready for whatever comes next, and that readiness is its own tenderness. You acknowledge the absence in a soft, ordinary way. There are no sweeping speeches, only the small facts of the room. A coat where someone left it, a glass half cleared, a playlist paused between songs. These traces do not weigh, they cushion. Your body responds to that cushioning. Breath deepens in an even, leisurely cadence. Muscles ease through the spine and down into the shoulders. The city sounds, the lamp's glow, the leftover warmth of plates, all of it creates a gentle architecture around you. You do not need to fill the space with words. You inhabit it, and the quiet company of what remains keeps you quietly okay. You move slowly through the room, as if not to disturb the catalog of small things that mark the evening. The lamp by the sofa pours a rounded amber light across the table, pooling on a coaster that holds the faint ring of a glass. The ring is nearly dry, edges darker than the center, an echo of hands and warmth that passed this way a little while ago. The light softens the edges of everything, makes the jacket folded over the back of the extra chair, read like a quiet presence rather than an absence. The sleeve is where it fell. The shoulder crease, still neat from being shrugged off in a hurry. That was gentle and unremarkable. You notice the hum of the refrigerator, a low domestic rhythm that threads the quiet. It meshes with the building's settling sighs and the distant softened swell of city sound, so that silence is not an empty thing, but a soft fabric. Your fingertips find the top of the table, cool wood, under skin. There is a warmth in the center where plates once sat, a residual heat that says someone leaned in, shared a moment just before the room turned inward. The crumbs at the edge of the plate are almost deliberate in their scatter, like punctuation left by a conversation that didn't need to be recorded. The couch cushions have not quite resumed their private angles. One cushion is pressed slightly forward, a shallow valley in its foam where a body rested, or where two bodies might have found an easy rhythm of sitting close without fuss. The throw is draped in a way that suggests a casual care, tucked over knees, half covering a lap, evoking a shape rather than a person. The fabric is soft against your palm, cotton-worn, smooth by familiar use. It smells faintly of detergent and skin. The scent is neither sharp nor pronounced, but it settles into the air like a quiet hello. A playlist sits paused on your phone by the lamp, the small screen reflecting the lamplight in a square of blue. The song ended a few lines ago, leaving a hush that feels considerate rather than abrupt. You let the hush breathe around you, aware of how sound can hold memory. The silence is layered. There are echoes of laughter in the cabinet's soft creak when someone reached for a glass, the whisper of a coat passing by the door, the tiny clink of silverware on plates. These are not weighty things to be examined. They are the soft architecture of evening. The scaffolding of company that has become company's remains. On the windowsill, the night presses with a dark glass, cool to the touch. Streetlights make small, washed-out stars against the paint, and the reflection shows the room back to itself, doubled gently. The night outside is a low, steady presence, humidity settling like a thin veil. A faint scent of rain lingers into the air, not heavy, but enough to pull the room closer inward. The lamp's halo keeps the interior tender and small, holding what happened here in a gentle light. You take the mug from the coaster and feel the last warmth of tea, the heat a memory that travels along the ceramic to your fingertips. There is a faint smear of jam on the rim, a remnant of toast eaten slowly, deliberately, as though conversation had room to stretch. The mug is comfortable in your hand, familiar in weight and shape, and for a moment you let the small ritual of holding it ground you. There is nothing urgent to do, only the simple act of being present with the traces left behind. A folded napkin rests beside the plate, corners soft from being used and smoothed again. It reads like a small courtesy, a folded thing that holds the impression of hands. Nearby, a thin scarf lies coiled on the arm of a chair, its weave catching the lamp glow. The scarf's color is something that feels like home without needing a reason, a hue that makes the room feel less like a place and more like a memory made visible. You run a thumb over the fabric and find a lint of thread, a tactile whisper that ties the small items into a quiet story. There is an extra cup in the sink, rinsed and set to dry, its surface fogged with the last breath of steam. The sink itself carries the soft sound of water gone from rushing to mere trickle in the pipes. The kitchen light, low and deliberate, is on like a gentle sentinel, keeping the line between night and interior calm. The aroma of citrus soap and a hint of the meal's seasoning hang in the air in layers, overlapping so that nothing stands too loudly. Scents blend, fold into one another, and you breathe them in as if they are a language you already know. You let your hand rest on the back of the extra chair, feeling the warm imprint left by someone who sat here earlier. The curve of the wood is worn smooth, where palms have met it, small signs of repeated use that read as comfort. The chair is slightly out of place, angled toward the table, turned toward the center of the room, as if still, listening for the next sentence. You imagine the small, unremarked gestures that happen when people are close without needing to show it. The way a salt shaker is passed, the subtle touch on the sleeve that recognizes and accepts. None of these things demand attention, they simply are. The light from the lamp makes a small world on the coffee table. Open magazine, a pair of reading glasses folded, and left as if to say, this is where focus paused, not ended. The pages are slightly askew, a photograph of a city block, catching the light in a quiet, grainy way. Your eyes move slowly across the image, taking in the angle of the street, the shape of a distant window, the way streets fold into corners. The scene lingers in the same comfortable register as the room. Familiar, unhurried, well-lived. There is a soft murmur from the building, someone upstairs moving in measured steps, a door closing many apartments away in a steady, final way. These sounds are part of the night's fabric, unremarkable but grounding, like a slow, steady sentence forming the room's outline. The apartment feels like a small harbor, each object a buoy marking a place of rest. You notice how the room holds memory without insisting on it, how surfaces retain warmth from recent presence and release it in their own time. You settle into the space without ceremony, feeling the couch yield in the places that welcome you. The air around you is cool in the way that makes a blanket inviting, not urgent. The lamp keeps the light low and forgiving, and the quiet becomes a companion with no demands, only steady company. You allow your gaze to soften, to find the small comforts. The jacket folded where it is because it was easy to leave it there. The plate rinsed and set aside with a thoughtless care. the scarf like a quiet signature on the arm of the chair. There is no need to catalog every detail, no pressure to explain why these things matter. The room is proof enough that you are not alone in the simplest sense. Shared traces are different from presence, softer somehow, like footprints along a shoreline that the tide will keep, but not rush. You breathe with that quiet knowledge, letting attention rest on the soft things. The texture of the throw, the warmth of the mug, cooling in your hands. The hush of the playlist, waiting with patient light. Outside, the night continues its slow conversation with the city. Inside, the small echoes of earlier company make the familiar feel like home. The lamp on the side table holds a small, forgiving circle of light, and you find yourself watching the way it rests against the grain of the tabletop, warm and steady. Your hand moves toward the knit throw folded over the arm of the couch, and the fabric meets your palm with the familiar, slightly worn softness that comes from many evenings at home. The room is lightly scented with lemon soap and something faint and woody that reminded you of someone's jacket draped over a chair earlier. The smell lingers like a polite memory, never loud, only there to remind you that company was here not long ago. Outside, the night presses close. A soft, steady hush covers the city, and the rain that began as a distance of small taps has folded itself into a continuous, even sound that blends with the hum of the refrigerator and the small, occasional creaks of the building settling into night. You move slowly, as if the world here has been softened inside a pocket of low light. The extra chair sits slightly off, angled toward the couch, as if its occupant had turned to say one more small thing, and then rose without finishing. The cushion there still has a faint impression along its seam, a place where weight briefly lived and then left. You run your fingers along that edge, feeling the subtle warmth that lingers in the fabric, the kind of warmth that is not yours and not entirely gone. The lamp throws a thin shadow across a stack of books on the coffee table. Their spines show the signs of repeated turns, margins softened, a dog-eared page here and there. One book lies open at the chapter you both paused on earlier, the spine relaxed, as if it had been read aloud in the way two people sometimes share a line and then fall into a quiet. The playlist on the small speaker stopped at a mid-song place, the pause like a held breath. Somewhere between the slow pulse of the bass and a gentle vocal, the music becomes background texture, indistinct and comforting, like a voice from another room you can almost follow but don't need to. You let the sound sit in the air, part of the layered hush. Rain, distant traffic softened by time, the low passing of tires, a neighbor's window light blinking off and on. Each sound is small, discreet, and then it is not important to place it. They are like threads woven into the same quiet cloth, and you are content to lie within it. A mug in the sink carries the faint trace of tea. The rim bears an imperfect ring where a spoon once rested. You remember stirring with a slow, unnecessary rhythm while talking about an old song or a mutual friend. The kind of easy exchange that fills a room without demanding attention. The dish soap smells clean and citrus bright, and you notice the way the light picks out the sudsy skin on the surface of the bowl when you reach for it like a tiny private sheen. You set the mug down and take a moment to smooth the nap of the throw with your palm, feeling the tiny raised threads settle into a softer line. Near the window, reflections gather. The lamp becomes a pale circle doubled by glass. The city lights blur into a scatter of dim coins, and an empty wine glass reflects the lamplight like a small moon. The glass sits where it was left, balanced on the coasters that have seen many such evenings. You like the way the coasters bear gentle rings of use, each a quiet record of conversation and the passage of time. There is no rush to tidy, no urgency to restore the room to pristine order. Everything can rest as it is, carrying its small, honest stories. You stand and walk slowly to the window, the floorboards offering a soft, hollow sound underfoot that is more like a conversation with the building than a clack. The rain on the glass blurs the skyline into watercolor, and the lights beyond become soft orbs that float in the night air. The coolness of the window frame meets your fingertips, a contrast to the lamp's glow behind you, and you make the small, wordless choice to stay in that balance between warmth and cool air. The hum of life beyond the glass is gentle and indifferent, and there is a particular comfort in that indifference tonight. No spectacle, no expectation, only the steady continuation of things. In the hallway, a jacket hangs on the rack, folded over one another like a pair of parentheses around the doorway. The fabric carries the faint scent of cologne and rain, an ordinary combination that reads like proof someone had been here and had gone out to the rain without thinking to shake it dry. You run a thumb along the cuff, feeling the worn leather patch where a watch once rested. There is a small badge on the inside pocket, a colorful pin that you both smiled at earlier. It rests there quietly, a tiny signal of shared taste and familiarity that does not demand naming. It is enough that you recognize it and remember the laughter that accompanied its discovery. You return to the couch and sink into the cushion, feeling the give of it, the way it knows your shape. The throw settles around your knees like a soft, deliberate gesture. In the low light, the room keeps its own rhythm, a slow, unhurried beat that matches what you feel in your chest. You place your hand on the armrest and notice the faint circle where a glass sat earlier, a ring that will fade with time and nothing else. The night feels like a friendly thing here, not empty, but also not filled to the brim. Domestic quiet that understands how to hold space without crowding. The clock on the kitchen wall ticks with the polite certainty of small movements, each second a soft, rounded sound that slides into the room without alarming. You let it be what it is, a small reminder of continuity, a way the world counts itself through simple noise. Your gaze falls to the open book on the table, where a margin note in a handwriting you know well curves into humor. The script is familiar without being possessive. It is simply another soft sign that another presence had used this space to leave a small, human trace. The wordless contentment of that trace is enough. You breathe in, noticing the coolness of the air on the inhale and the warmth in your chest on the exhale. The sensations are gentle and rounded, and you allow them to happen without trying to steer them. The sounds in the room, rain on the glass, the low fridge, the music a faint wash, move together into a composite that is slow and kind. They do not demand analysis or reaction. They are steady companions in a quiet house of small, shared histories. There is a softness in the edges of everything. The lamp dims itself not by any mechanism, but by the way your vision relaxes into the evening. Your attention blurs towards small textures. The weave of the throw, the light scuff on the coffee table where a mug once sat, the slight softness of the cushion under your thigh. These details fold into one another, forming a gentle, uncomplicated map of a room that knows how to host presence and then to let it go. You think for a moment about the ease of having someone else leave without leaving a hole. The room keeps the warmth of their passing like a retained sunbeam. It does not shout their absence, it simply keeps the shape of it softly visible. In that holding, there is a quiet security, that people can come and go, and the space between arrivals is not empty but threaded with the small domestic evidence of having been together. You sink further into that thought without insisting on an end to it, letting it sit like a soft weight that is comforting rather than burdensome. Outside, the rain slows, then picks up again. There is no drama to its change, only a shifting texture. Inside, the night remains steady and kind. The lamp keeps watch without glare, and the city hums at a distance that feels like a lullaby, if lullabies could be made of traffic and rain and quiet conversation. You stay with the small sounds, with the touch of fabric on skin, with the faint scent of citrus and wood. The room is alive with gentle memory, each object a soft testament to shared hours. You rest in the middle of it, unpressured, acknowledged by the way the space remembers the company it held earlier, and you let the quiet shape around you, slow and unhurried, like a hand placed lightly on your shoulder. You move less tonight, as if the furniture around you remembers the rhythm of earlier laughter and is holding its breath in the same soft way. The lamp on the side table sends a low, golden pool across the surface where dishes were set down and folded napkins still sit in a loose, careful pile. The light bends at the edge of a glass and makes a thin line on the wood, a small, constant thing that has no urgency. Your hands rest on the arm of the chair, fingertips tracing the faint, worn seam where someone else leaned earlier and left the fabric shaped by warm weight. The motion is minimal and companionable, a gesture that keeps the shape of the evening intact without needing to remake it. The room carries the smell of citrus from the soap used at the sink and a soft, lingering note of something herbal from the meal. The scent is layered in the way that good houses are layered. Clean linen, a touch of dust warmed by bodies, the faint tang of coffee, gone cooler on a mug, with a thin ring where it waited. You can tell where two plates were once set close together, because the table still holds their memory and the warm outline they left behind. An extra chair is pulled out by a fraction, angled as if someone rose slowly and then paused. The pause remains and you allow it to stay. No need to write it, no need to signal an ending. Outside, night sits quiet against the window. Glass reflects the lamplight back on itself, showing a softer room doubled and companioned by its own reflection. The street beyond is a slow ribbon of distant lights and softer engines, the kind of evening that keeps to itself. A mild breeze finds the window crack and brings a whisper of damp pavement and the distant smell of rain. It rests on the sill for a moment before moving on, cool and trusting. Small sounds gather and release. An elevator far away groans like a slow breath. The building settles with a tiny creak of old wood, finding a new position. These are ordinary noises, familiar and unremarkable, but they feel tender in the hush. A jacket lies folded over the back of the sofa, where someone set it down without fuss. Its fabric is still warm at one sleeve, as if it remembers the heat of shoulders and the way a hand smoothed it once. There is a faint scent to it, a personal trace that is private and unexamined, and you find no need to name or explain it. You press the heel of your hand lightly against the cloth, and the fibers give in a slow, pleasing way, like a promise kept small. Nearby, a pair of slippers sits neatly by the door, slightly askew in the way people leave things when they intend to come back. That small arrangement comforts you. The world is not tidier than it needs to be, and that feels honest. On the bookshelf, a couple of postcards peek from between paperbacks. Notes from friends who visit when the city is warm. Scribbled lines about late nights and soft mornings. You remember turning one over and smiling earlier. The handwriting familiar in a way that makes the stomach warm. On the coffee table, a playlist pauses in the middle of a song that the group likes. The music still threaded through the room, like a companion who keeps to the doorway. The song is not important to identify, only to notice how it shaped the tempo of the evening and left a gentle echo in the corners. You listen to the echo rather than the start of music, letting it be a texture rather than a command. Your chest moves in a quiet, unhurried way. The breath feels like the building around you, steady, small, patient. You think of small kindnesses that were offered during the evening. A hand steadying a glass, a laughed correction of a misremembered detail, the simple passing of salt without ceremony. None of these acts demand attention now. They exist as soft impressions on the surface of things, like ripples in a shallow bowl. The bowl sits on the table where it was used and holds the residue of a shared dessert. A few crumbs, a smear of something sweet, at the edge. You study the pattern with the kind of attention that is slow and careful, noticing how the light catches the glaze in a quiet way. The room is arranged to support the reduction of motion. Cushions are plumped where bodies rested. A blanket is draped over the back of an armchair in a tidy curve, and the weight that had pressed into the sofa earlier has smoothed into the fabric, holding a gentle indentation. You move to ease the blanket further across your knees, the wool warming where it brushes skin. The texture is soft and gives just enough, a small contractile hug that does not ask, does not preach. You tuck one corner under and feel the heat it keeps, the kind of small, domestic warmth that suggests care without spectacle. It is easy to track the small, affectionate habits that mark quiet, queer domestic life. The specific mug, chosen because it fits the hand a certain way. The way coats are shared and left like markers of temporary trust. The playlist that only a few people know the right order of. These details are like a shorthand between you and your chosen ones. Unspoken and steady. They are not declarations. They are the ordinary grammar of living with people who understand you. You let them be part of the furniture in your mind, not as a story to tell, but as familiar lighted corners you keep returning to. Occasionally, the refrigerator hum shifts tone, and you notice it with soft curiosity. The sound settles into the background and becomes another layer of steady company. A small clock navigates the hour, with gentle ticks that are more comfort than measurement. Time in this room is not a line to hurry along. It is a set of comfortable rectangles filled with ease. You trace the outline of a napkin with a fingertip, listening to the tiny rustle as if it were a limb stretching after a long day. The window shows a strip of sky, the city's light softened into the kind of glow that feels like a shawl draped across distant shoulders. You look at it and allow your thoughts to thin into a softer map. You do not chase them, you let them rest where they are. Each breath is slow and even, and movement is reduced to simple, careful gestures. Setting a cup back on the coaster, smoothing a fold in the blanket, turning a page of a magazine with deliberate slowness. The room does the heavy lifting of being steady for you, and you respond by following its lead. There is no need to fill the quiet with words. The absence of speech is not emptiness, but a kind of respectful silence that shelters small belonging. You notice the outline of a chair where someone once sat and how it holds the shape of being used. You notice the soft alignment of objects that says, these things belong together. The domestic sounds, the fridge, the lamp's slight click when it warms, the distant car that slides past like a slow wave, make a gentle score for the evening. As your hands rest, the world narrows into tactile things. The soft give of fabric, the weight of a cup in your palm, the warm curve of wood under your fingertips. Light stays low and patient. Air moves easily through the room. The scents blend into a familiar hum, and everything that remains is the small architecture of comfort. You are part of a room that remembers company and holds that memory tenderly, letting you rest in the aftermath without pressure. It is a minimal movement of body and attention that suits the hour. You let the stillness keep its shape, and in that quiet, the night feels like a friend who knows when to stay close and when to fold back into its own shade. You find the evening already folded into itself, like the linen napkins on the counter that were used earlier and tucked aside without ceremony. The lamp by the couch throws a low circle of light across the room, warm and forgiving. You move slowly, mindful of the soft sounds of the place settling around you. The refrigerator's distant, steady breath. A radiator that lets out a small, contented sigh, the faint echo of a laugh that belongs to earlier and now belongs to memory. The chair that was pulled a little closer to the table remains so. Its cushion still holds the gentle crescent of weight. Nothing needs adjusting. The room keeps the shape of company for a while, as if presence leaves a gentle indentation in the air. There are 2 mugs on the table, rings of cooled coffee. like moons in the saucers. One has a thin, almost invisible smudge on the rim where someone paused mid-sentence and remembered something else. The other has that particular nick on the handle that you have come to recognize as theirs, like a small private map. You press your palm to the wood and feel the trace warmth left behind. The grain is soft under your fingers. It is enough to know that warmth sat here not long ago, and that it was ordinary and uncomplicated. The light above the kitchen sink catches the edge of a plate, a faint smear of lemon and rosemary. The scent is gentle, the kitchen still telling its story in quiet things. A spoon placed in a bowl, a towel folded over a chair back, the small trail of crumbs that leads like a punctuation mark to the counter. The jacket tossed over the extra chair drapes in a familiar arc. It has a patch sewn on the pocket, not flashy, stitched by a friend and worn into softness. You run a thumb along the seam, and the fabric answers with a mild resistance, the way old sweaters do when they are meant to be lived in. Inside the pocket, a folded receipt, a ticket stub for a show, a napkin with a scribbled list. All the tiny documents of evenings that have been shared and kept. The lamp makes a soft halo around that corner, and for a moment you let your attention rest there on the ordinary archive of small decisions. The room is not empty. It is decanted like wine left to breathe. It carries the taste of conversation and the residue of stories, told in low voices. Outside, the night is near and gentle. Rain, barely more than a sigh, taps at the window pane now and then, adding a thin, rhythmic punctuation to the room's quiet. The city beyond the glass is a blur of distant lights, softened by the weather, and far enough away to be companionable rather than demanding. The air that slips in when you open the window is cool and carries the clean scent of wet pavement and crushed green leaves. It moves across your face and seems to smooth the edges of thought. You inhale, and the layered smells in the room, soap, coffee, a faint citrus from the dishes, fold into the evening air like notes in a chord. You move through the apartment with small, unhurried gestures. A throw, folded at arm's length, has a weight that is familiar in a calming way. The cushions still retain the slight impression of where someone leaned back and relaxed against them. You sit down and let your body remember the ease of that curve. There is no plan for this time. It is simply time held open. You return to the table to pick up a postcard, the handwriting on it looping in a hand you know. It is a message about a future gathering, a casual note that reads like an invitation to be both present and ordinary. You tuck it into a stack with other small paper things. A recipe penciled in the margin of a newspaper clipping, a ticket from an earlier film, a photo that caught the corner of a laugh. These are the quiet cartography of living, small proofs that others have been here, that you have moved through life alongside someone who leaves traces, not to mark territory, but to share space. The playlist that was left on the speaker resumes where it paused, a soft sequence of songs your ears already recognize. They are gentle and familiar, songs you both hummed on the way home or paused to listen to during the slow hush of a night. The music is low, a thread of sound that connects the present to the recent past. It is not demanding, only present, like a lamp kept burning for a guest who may return. The tones wash over the room and blend with the sound of rain. Nothing presses. The notes bend around the edges of thought and leave a comfortable residue. You notice the small domestic arrangements around you. A bowl with citrus fruit that looks almost too bright in the soft lamplight. A stack of well-thumbed paperbacks on the nightstand. The curl of a scarf left on a banister. The towels into the bathroom still smell faintly of soap and lavender. The air in that small room is cool, clean, a private breath of scent. Each object here is quiet testimony to care. The ritual of washing up after a meal, the folding of napkins, the placing of a chair back at a slower pace than necessary. These gestures are unremarkable and profound in their ordinariness, They are the grammar of shared nights and of evenings that follow them. Your thoughts move without insistence. They slip and slide across these small things, like fingers across a smooth surface. A line of thought begins and eases into an image, then softens into a sensation. The urgency that sometimes comes with thinking is diminished here, the edges hushed by the room's low light. You find yourself returning to the same small delights. The way a ceramic mug warms the palm, the quiet sound of pages turning, the way the lamp gives permission to everything it touches. Time feels spacious enough for quiet reflection and for gentle forgetting. Not erasure, but a light loosening. You allow silence to be a presence rather than a void. It is full of tiny sounds. The soft creak of the stair below, the hum of the building's pipes, the distant muffled murmur of someone putting their keys away. These are the background notes of lives that make a city feel inhabited and human. They reassure without demanding. There is a generosity to them, a steady, unremarkable companionship. You listen and feel the room respond. The objects here seem to breathe with you, the fabric of the couch expanding and contracting, the lamp steady in its glow, the mug cooling slowly. Presence simply is, with no need to do or say anything. The light changes as the minutes pass. The lamp's glow grows a shade softer as the bulb settles into its evening warmth. Shadows round and lengthen in a gentle, unhurried way. You notice the way the window glass catches the streetlights outside, flecks of gold caught in the pane like tiny constellations. There is an ease in watching this slow, almost invisible shift of light. Your thoughts follow the dimming, simplifying. Sentences in your mind shorten as if obeying the room's rhythm, the language softening at the edges. You let your hands rest in your lap. The fabric of your trousers is cool, slightly textured, a small anchor. You breathe in the layered room. Smells once more. Coffee, citrus, warm fabric. The rain's clean edge. Each breath is a small returning, a quiet agreement with the place and the moment. There is no urgency to do anything with these feelings. They are allowed to be as they are, gentle, present, domestic. The world beyond the window remains distant and soft. Inside, everything is held in the hush of familiar things. The room continues to carry the trace of company, like the faintest echo of a voice. It is enough to know that someone else was here earlier, that their presence lingers into the weight of a pillow, the tilt of a chair, the music, and the mugs on the table. You are here now, and the evening is folded around you, like a familiar blanket, warm and unassuming. Your thoughts lose their sharp edges and take on the round, easy shape of this place. Presence remains without effort, and you rest within it, steady and quietly accompanied. You walk through the doorway without rushing, letting the soft click of the latch sound like a punctuation mark that belongs entirely to the room. The air wraps around you in a quiet way, the cool of the corridor mixing with the residual warmth left behind by other hands and earlier laughter. The lamp on the side table is still on, its shade sending a gentle pool of light across the surface. Where a bowl sits, a fork resting at an angle, as if the person who used it had simply stood up and stepped away for a moment. The bowl is empty now, but the faint scent of citrus and spice hangs in the air, layered with the soap that rinsed the plates and the faint, dusty sweetness of wool from a sweater draped across the back of an extra chair. You move slowly, letting your feet find the familiar grooves of the floor. The wood has softened edges from years of use, the same place where you always set your keys. Your hand brushes the arm of the couch and feels the smooth, worn fabric there, the tiny give of the cushions that remember the shape of more than one evening. An extra pillow, not put away, still leans at a slight angle. Someone's scarf rests there, folded with casual care. The sight is ordinary and steady, a map of a night that happened and left its small echoes. The room is not empty. It's arranged to have been occupied. That feeling sits with you like a soft presence. A window shows the city beyond as a wash of distant lights, not intrusive but companionable. Small pulsing points softened by humidity on the glass. Night presses against the pane in a slow, even way. You can hear the faint breath of the building settling, a slow exhale of pipes and frames cooling after the day. The refrigerator hums, a low, very domestic sound that drifts through the kitchen like a small, constant animal. Somewhere far off, a late bus passes, its sound dampened by rain that fell earlier and left a clean smell on the air. The room keeps you safe in its ordinary noises. You make tea without hurry. Water moves, tilting into the kettle with a small, clear sound. Steam rises, gentle and pale, carrying with it a faint scent of bergamot that feels familiar, as if the same brand has been used at many gatherings. You cup the mug between both hands for a moment, feeling the warmth diffuse outward. The surface of the table still holds a faint heat, where plates had been set. A napkin, folded careless and neat at once, carries a small spot of sauce that looks like it belongs to someone who knows you well enough not to mind the mess. Small things like that are quiet markers of being among people who keep you without fuss. There's a folded jacket on the back of one chair, the shoulder pressed a little flat where someone leaned. It doesn't occur to you to pack it away. You leave it there, as if keeping that modest imprint is a way of preserving the ease of the evening. There is a postcard pinned to the corkboard above the sink, edges slightly softened, showing a photograph of a march a few summers ago. No words are written on it, just the image and the memory it brings, the comfortable alignment of being among others who look after one another. You do not need to name that feeling for it to sit correctly in the space. On the bookshelf, small objects have migrated toward one another, a candle whose wick is trimmed, a dog-eared magazine with a feature page bookmarked by a receipt, a plant with leaves that have been stroked and talked to in sentences that never needed to be recorded. The plant leans toward the window, catching what city light slips in, and its soil smells faintly of earth and a watered kindness. The lamplight softens the shadows of the leaves into gentle shapes on the wall. You find a place on the couch and sink in, the fabric forming itself softly around you. It holds you like a quiet agreement. You listen to the small catalog of sounds that belong to late evening here. The radiator murmurs, steady and unshowy. A window somewhere down the hall clicks as it cools. The kettle has finished and cooled. The mug in your hands makes a soft whisper when you set it on the saucer. Outside, distant rain taps with an irregular rhythm on surfaces that remember weather. Each sound is small and private, close enough to notice and far enough away to be company without crowding. Your eyes rest on the remnants of the evening. A playlist left, paused on the speaker, a page of a magazine with a recipe circled, the lighter left on the counter. None of these things demand explanation. They are evidence of care. A friend who knows your taste in music, someone who chose a meal they knew you would like, a small domestic choreography of give and take. You breathe with them, letting the room's memory settle like dust that catches the lamplight in a slow, forgiving way. This is the particular hush of a space that has just been shared. You are aware of your body as it eases into stillness, each movement deliberate and unhurried. Fingers trace the texture of the blanket at your knees, discovering the soft knots where it was mended. That mending is a kind of quiet history, hands that took time to repair, hands that value continuity. The fabric holds warmth and the faint smell of a soap you both prefer, an unspoken agreement about small comforts. You tug the blanket up a little higher and feel the softness settle across your ankles, a private ceremony that requires no announcement. The light slants differently now, warmer and more intimate than earlier brightness. Shadows pool and recede, and the things in the room seem grateful for the gentleness. A mug leaves a pale ring on the table, circular and complete. A photograph leans against the frame of a mirror, faces blurred by a soft focus, smiles that do not need to be remarked upon. The absence of voices is not a silence that empties. It is a silence that allows those images to breathe. You hold them in the same breath that follows the kettle's whimper and the soft click of a lamp, dimmer turned as if to match the room's rhythm. Your thoughts are simple and uncomplicated, the sort of reflections that appear when noise thins, the comfort of being known, the ease of returning to a room that knows the weight of your shoulders, the small miracle of dishes washed and put away without fuss. There is gratitude here, but it is soft and practical, almost domestic in its shape. It is the kind of thanks that blends into the act of making the bed straight, of smoothing a cushion, of leaving a window slightly cracked so the air will keep moving, fresh and cool. Time feels elastic in this space. It stretches and contracts without drawing attention. You sip your tea, feel warmth spread, and let the evening's details fold into a quiet inventory that steadies you. Chores remain undone and are not urgent. A list of plans sits folded in a drawer, not pressing. You are allowed to sit in the company of what has been, to let the room hold those traces for as long as you like. When you stand to extinguish the lamp, you do so with a slow hand, the motion considerate and unhurried. The light recedes but does not vanish. It lingers like a promise in the corners, soft and watchful. The hum of the refrigerator continues. The city breathes, and the room keeps its gentle memory of company. You move through the space with the quiet confidence of someone who knows both how to be with others and how to be with the self that remains after they leave. The night is close and kind, and the apartment, with its slightly askew chairs and warm plates, holds you like a familiar song. You move through the quiet room with the easy care that comes from having been here before, or from having hosted people who leave traces that feel like invitations rather than interruptions. The lamp on the side table is on low, a warm circle that keeps the corners from going abrupt. It makes the wood grain of the table look soft, like a map of small decisions, where a mug sat, where a coaster slipped a little, where an invitation got set down and forgotten for a while. The chair opposite the sofa is nudged out, not exactly where it belongs, angled as if someone had pushed back to stand and then paused. The room wears that slight disorder like a comfortable sweater. There is a smell that fits the evening, a residue of citrus from the dish soap, the faint honey of something that roasted, a trace of a herbal tea that steeped and cooled. The scents layer in a way that says company was here, not loudly but properly, the kind that leaves the air folded with memory. You notice these things the way you notice a favorite song in another room, aware of all the parts that made the moment, less interested in cataloging than in letting them rest against you. The refrigerator hums somewhere in the background, a steady friend, and the building does that small settling exhale that comes with night. Your palm brushes the back of the sofa as you pass, and the fabric gives under your hand. The cushion where someone had leaned is still a touch warmer, the kind of warmth that moves with you when you sit down and then slowly forget about. You press your fingertips into the edge of a throw blanket and feel the soft nap of it, the slight fuzz catching against skin. It folds easily when you lift it, light and familiar, a thing that has been in more than one apartment and has held more than one conversation. There is comfort in things that carry traces like this, in objects that remember without needing to speak. Across the coffee table, a mug sits with an abandoned spoon inside. There is a small ring of darker ceramic where the liquid was, a reminder of the recent motion of being present with someone else in the same air. You set your own hand near it but not on it, as if allowing the small domestic tableau to maintain its quiet integrity. The table is still warm from its earlier use, the surface reluctant to let go of heat. You feel the temperature and think of small, ordinary acts: the careful carrying of plates, the clink of cutlery, the shuffle of feet as people rearrange themselves to make space. Those acts are always enough. Light from the street leaks through the blinds in thin, slow bars. It is softened by the glass and the evening air outside, which holds humidity tonight, making the cityscape a little melt-edged. The window reflects the lamp and the shapes in the room, folding inside and out together. When you look at the reflection, you almost see two shadows overlapping for a moment. Then one settles away, and the room's stillness reasserts itself. The night outside is patient, a slow breath of sound, distant tires on wet pavement, a far-off conversation that is already a memory by the time it reaches you. The hush of the world, allowing indoor life to be itself. You sit, finally, on the edge of the sofa, where the fabric loosens to make a small harbor. The cushion molds under you, then holds, a satisfying, practical kind of comfort. The lamp casts a soft halo over your knees. There is a playlist lingering somewhere, the kind of mix that people arrive with or that you create together. A low hum of synths, a voice that is familiar and not intrusive, songs that fold into each other and make new pockets of feeling without demanding notice. The music is low enough that it might almost be the room's own breathing. Your fingers find the spine of a book on the coffee table by habit, but you do not open it. You like the knowledge that it is there, that someone else had chosen it for this space, or lent it and never asked for it back yet. The cover is worn along the edges where it has been rested on laps and 1,000 small surfaces. Objects like that feel like endorsements of belonging, that things can be used and returned and trusted to keep their place in the room's quiet order. You slide your thumb along the cover and feel the texture, the paper's small give, and you let the sensation ripple through you in a soft, unrushed way. A folded jacket lies draped over the arm of the chair, sleeves tucked in as if to keep their shape. It carries the faint scent of another's cologne, the kind you know by tilt of it. Soft cedar and a citrus top note maybe. The smell is not loud, it is a delicate punctuation. It reminds you that people enter rooms and leave imprints that are not permanent, but are pleasant for a long while. You rest your fingertips on the fabric and feel the weave, a steady reassurance that people move through each other's spaces and do not need to perform permanence to make warmth. There is an extra pair of slippers near the door, slightly misaligned, which suggests someone lingered at the threshold for a moment longer. That small difference in order is a gentle document of generosity. The gesture of shedding cold feet and staying until the light thins. You notice the way the slippers are placed, the way ordinary items incline toward one another and create a soft map of where bodies had been. Maps like this are comforting. They do not explain. They simply remind you that you are part of an ordinary pattern. Your breath follows the slow rhythm of the room. You feel the edge of fatigue, not in any urgent way, but as an easing of faculties, like a door turning on a hinge that knows it. You adjust the throw over your legs with a movement so small, it might be a thought, and the fabric settles with a muted shuffle. The lamp throws a warmer light across the blanket's texture, and for a while, your attention rests on the tiny, unfussy details. A seam, a faint pilling where things have been loved, the gentle slope where a lap meets the end of a cushion. The kitchen, visible from here, holds the gentle evidence of the evening's undoing. A dish, drying rack with a single glass, a small plate with crumbs that will be wiped away tomorrow, a towel draped over the oven handle. The sink is half lit and quiet. The space is not tidy in the military sense. It is lived in, which in this context feels kinder. It says that you and others have been present enough to leave marks and also to know. Someone else will understand them without comment. The room exudes an unspoken agreement of acceptance. Your attention drifts to the window again. The night beyond continues without hurry. Lights blink on and off across other apartments, some bright, some dim, each a soft punctuation that there are other private worlds nearby. The blind's slatted shadow moves imperceptibly as a breeze finds a gap in the building. Night humidity brings a faint, leafy scent that threads into the citrus and kitchen traces. It is a balm, a texture for the senses to rest against. You think of the absent voices as a kind of presence. They are not active now, but the pattern they left is warm and steady, like an exhale you can follow. The room holds all these small testimonies to company without insisting on names or explanations. That ease is what makes it feel like home. It is the kind of place where people can come, stay, and leave things with you. A jacket, a joke, a story, a plate with a small smear of sauce. These are tokens of belonging that mean something simply by existing here. Your head tilts back against the sofa, and the fabric cradles the weight in just the right way. The lamp's light is a familiar pressure on your eyelids, soft enough to blur the edges without wiping them clean. Sound from the street becomes a distant wash. The fridge maintains its easy low tone. The building's slight shifts are gentle punctuation marks. The room is a patient companion, keeping watch in the only way it knows. By being steady, by not asking for anything in return, by keeping the warmth it was given and letting it linger. There is no hurry to move. The night is open and patient in the way a friend waits at the edge of a conversation, ready to continue if needed, but content to simply be. You notice the small comforts around you and allow them to be enough. The lamp's pool of light, the soft blanket, the mug with the spoon, the chair left slightly out of place. These are the quiet things that hold you tonight. The room holds itself in the same soft way it always does after company has left. Not empty, not loudly occupied, but quiet with the warmth of recent presence. You move slowly through that hush, noticing how the lamp on the side table pools light like a small harbor, how its glow sits on a book left face down and on an extra chair that had been nudged a little too close to the table. The evening has not been erased, it is simply softened into a memory of fabrics and faint smells, and the gentle alignment of objects that came from hands and laughter, not long gone. You run your fingers along the back of the chair that was used most, feeling the varnish just slightly warm from a body leaning against it. The cushion there keeps a subtle impression, a little ridge where someone sat and then stood, returning the cushion to its shape only after a long minute. There is an ease in these small things. The kitchen clock ticks, but it is the kind of tick that blends with the refrigerator's low hum and the distant muffled sound of a city that has wrapped itself in night. Outside, a light rain taps the windows on a steady, patient rhythm, and the coolness airing the room has the faint, clean scent of pavement and green leaves. You notice the jacket folded over the banister, the way someone leaves a familiar garment. Casually, with trust. A small enamel pin fastened to its lapel, a tiny crescent of color, catches the light for a second, then returns to soft shadow. It is an ordinary detail, and it feels like an invitation to remember without needing to explain. On the table, a stack of dishes waits in the sink. Plates with crumbs that smell faintly of citrus and herbs. Someone had peeled lemons for a simple dessert. The aroma steady and clean, layered with a hint of soap, where the sink water had warmed the air. A playlist continues on low, a thread of songs that hung with the evening and now sits in the periphery. The music is familiar in a way that carries the faces who were here, not because you named them, but because the tempo and cadence match how the night felt. When you tilt your head, you can hear a particular note that makes you smile quietly to yourself. It is the kind of smile that settles the cheeks and softens the jaw. An unguarded smallness that is allowed because the room feels safe enough to be unpolished. There are photographs on the mantel, edges slightly curling from too many nights of being handled. In the pictures, arms rest across shoulders, shoes dangle mid-laughter, and a window in one photo holds the same night glow you see now. The images are not loud. They hold the kind of history that lives in the grain of a wooden shelf. You let your gaze rest there for a while, recognizing that these faces and these frames are a kind of quiet architecture for the life you keep. It is a chosen, steady construction that no longer requires explanation. You do not need to account for its presence, it simply is. The lighter fabric of a blanket draped over the couch invites your palm. It is textured and warm, smelling faintly of detergent and the faint trace of cologne you keep for special nights. Touching it releases a tiny private comfort. The fabric remembers the way bodies fold into it, the little grooves of elbows and knees, and it replies by giving just enough resistance to be familiar. You fold it a little neater, more out of an old habit than a necessity, and then let it sit. That small action is domestic and unimportant in the map of days, and precisely for that, you let it be important now. The lamplight throws thin, gentle shadows across a postcard propped against a jar of paintbrushes. The postcard is from a friend who lives 2 neighborhoods over. A brief note saying they had a good time and would stop by again soon. Their handwriting is a quick, rounded script that leans into the margin like someone hurrying to make sure a thought fits. You trace the edge of the stamp with your thumb, a small ritual that has no purpose other than to be a way to keep held the fact of another person's tenderness. There is considerate disorder in the room. A wine glass cooling on the counter. A bundle of napkins crumpled from use. A pair of mismatched socks lying near the doorway, where someone kicked them off carelessly. Nothing is put away yet, and that is all right. The space is allowed a little looseness. It belongs to nights like this. You move through it as if through a memory you can touch, listening to the soft house noises, the settling of wood, the distant traffic like a tapestry of low sound. A fan turns in an adjacent room, whispering air into the space, and you feel the temperature ease into a comfortable in-between, neither warm nor cool, but exactly what the evening asks for. You drink from the water glass left near the couch, and the cold runs down your throat. The clarity of it makes the moment more vivid without sharpening it. You take the glass back to the kitchen, and, in doing so, pass the chalkboard where someone wrote a small note earlier. A line about meeting again, a word that is almost a joke. The handwriting is familiar. You do not read it aloud, you read it with the eyes of someone who knows the cadence of another's jokes, how they place small markers in the life you share. Your steps are measured, slow. There is no hurry tonight. You find yourself deciding to put the empty bottle in the recycling and to stack the plates gently. Each small motion feels like a way to keep the echo of the evening close without trying to preserve it whole. It is a practice of letting things remain in their used state, of honoring the presence by letting it leave quietly. You do not push against the silence. You allow it to unfold so that it feels like a soft sheet slipping down around the edges of the room. When you sit back on the couch, the lamp's pool of light becomes a small private sky. Your hands rest in your lap, and you let your breathing match the slow rhythm of the house, the fridge's soft sigh, the rain's patient pulse, the bus that passes by with taillights blinking like distant stars. In the corner, a slim book lies open to a page you have not read yet. The sentence you glimpse is simple and unadorned, the kind of language that makes room in the head rather than crowd it. You close it and tuck it under your arm, as if saving it for a future minute where words will be welcome again. There is a softness to this night that feels like belonging. It is not loud or performative. It is the quiet certainty of knowing a space will hold you, having others who will come back, a sense that the small domestic rituals, the folding of napkins, the pin on a lapel, the postcard on a jar, are stitches in a fabric that is yours and shared. You allow your shoulders to loosen and the tension that came from being seen to ebb like a tide that has decided to stay low for a while. Time here is gentle. It keeps to itself. The lights beyond the window are diffused by rain, and the room returns your presence the way a familiar room does, with patient acceptance. You sit and let the quiet keep you company, the same way a friend would sit nearby without speech, simply being there, present and uninsistent. The night carries on with a steady, soft pace, and the room remains ready for rest, for the next visit, for whatever small comforts will be unpacked tomorrow. You hold that readiness in your chest, a steady, small warmth that needs nothing more than the knowledge of itself.